In a time of universal deceit, telling the truth is a revolutionary act. George Orwell. Yeah. This is Blood Politics. The only podcast where we don't talk about politics. We be about politics. And our mission statement is to empower, educate, and encourage everyone to speak out against fascism. Speak out against injustice and fight for freedom and equality for everyone. This is Blood Politics, and we ain't stopping till they put us in the grave. We ain't gonna be quiet, and we ain't gonna be scared, and we ain't gonna go along with the crowd. This is Blood Politics.
What's up? All right, what's going on? What's happening, you goobers? Well, I appreciate you joining me as always. Thank you so much. It is still Wednesday, 27 May 2026. We're back for another edition of the Blunt Politics podcast. So I appreciate you once again for joining me. I'm Boston Brian. Thank you so much for Hal for kicking it over this way. Any of the sparklers coming in, very much appreciated. Salute to you guys, everybody on Twitch, everybody that's coming in, joining on YouTube as well. What's up, the Rex says? What's up, Corrine? CSL, my brother from another mother. How are you, my friend? What's going on, dude? Hope you're well. Hope you're well. One and all. Filter in. Everybody's welcome. Everybody's welcome. Just hit that like button on the way in. Subscribe if you're not subscribed. Everybody give a big shout out to my main man, CSL. Very much appreciate you guys for the help and appreciation and support that you guys show across the lefties platforms, right? I appreciate that. What's going on, Jennifer? What's going on, C4 Miles? Ton of people on Twitch today. Let's fucking go. What's up, Jamie, over there on Facebook? I see you, Wes, on YouTube. What's up, Jim, Tamara, Dustin, Jackie? Let's go. Shit for Brains. Not a bad name. Not a bad name. Very fitting for a lot of people in this world right now. So I appreciate that name. I really do. But thank you guys for joining me once again. Like I said, make sure you hit that like button on the way in. What do you say we throw you guys on the screen? You guys always deserve some screen time. I feel bad when you guys don't get the screen time. There you are. What's happening, moms? What's going on, Roxanne? What's up, Steve-O? What's happening, brother? What's up, Gamer? What's going on, guys? Yeah, I appreciate you guys for filtering in, as always. I really, really do. What's going on, Rox? What's up, Steve? Shauno? Atrocious? What's going on? How's everybody doing? Well, good to see everybody out and about tonight. What's going on? Yeah, what's up, Easy Network? What's up, Gen05? Trina, how are you? What's up, Alvin? Peter? What's going on, guys? All right, so, yeah, what's up, Luis? I appreciate you guys and everybody coming over from Hal's. Look, it's going so fast, I can't even get the right chat that I want. Can't even get the right chat. JD. What's up, JD? Good to see you guys. Always good to see you guys. Always. What's up, Alley-oop? What's happening? All right. A few other things we'll be speaking about tonight. Obviously, you had Trump dazed and confused and sleepy once again with his merry gang of sycophants, liars, crooks, thieves, fraudsters, and pussies that he had, an alleged cabinet meeting. Again, it's just how much can you kiss Donald Trump's ass in front of Donald Trump is really what these meetings are all about, which is why he's so favorable to having the media there. So we'll be taking a look at just a couple clips. I won't subject you to too much. But I am going to, like I always say, revel in the downfall of that sumbitch. So stick with me. Jen and Pumps also going to be talking about Donald Trump's health decline in only the way, form, and fashion that Jen and Pumps from the I've Had It podcast know how to do. So I figured we'd dive into that. I'm sure there's going to be some making fun of going on, let's just say, in that video and that clip. We got J.D. Vance's relationship with Donald Trump apparently souring per some reporting that is out there, whether it's his, distancing from the Iran war or some other aspects going on behind the scenes. There's some reporting that, J.D. Vance is thinking about kind of putting a hold onto his future presidential runs because of, the bad shit that's been taking place under his watch as vice president. He's also apparently, and like I said, this has been reported, he's getting a little butthurt about, Marco Rubio's rise and how favorable Marco Rubio is, let's just say, to Donald Trump at this point. So JD Vance kind of getting the shit end of the stick on a lot of the deals, right? If he's going to see the Pope's dying. If he's going to see, somebody in Europe, they're losing their elections. Like, he's getting sent to, to different things and dealing with, like, what's he dealing with now? The fraud. I think he's been put in charge of fraud. So they're just kind of giving him all the bullshit, right? We'll pull up a couple clips about that as well. We now have experts, and this is really going to put some fucking panties in a bunch, right? We've been talking a long time about the long-term ramifications, the long-term concerns of what the closure of the Strait of Hormuz is going to do for global gas prices. We've heard a lot of experts coming out and rightly saying, from what we've seen in the data, saying even if it were to open up today, even if we came to some peace agreement, some deal was signed, this very second right now, it would be considerable amounts of time. It would be quite some time before we saw any kind of jump back to normalcy as far as gas prices were concerned, especially on a wide ranging level. So we'll be taking a look at that. I think there's an article I pulled up and also a clip pertaining to that as well. Republicans, we got a clip of Republicans calling out Republicans for supporting Republicans. So again, we're always here to highlight and promote that Republican on Republican violence that's been going on, of, some people on what they're calling the America First side now calling out the people that are still in the MAGA cult. So again, we're just going to watch from afar. We're going to sit there, eat up popcorn, and watch these people tear each other apart. And then obviously from this morning, we have the Rest is Politics video to finish. So that's something we got. We got Ukraine's unjammable drones. There was a tweet that I saw, which would be a huge leap right now in drone technology and the abilities that the Ukrainians have of getting around the Russian jamming systems. We talked a lot about their spoofing and obviously their ability to jam these drones. So we'll be taking a look at that. A look into Putin's declining health, as told to us by a Russian himself. Our favorite neighborhood Russian, Roman, is going to tell us about the decline really and how it's very similar. I don't think he brings this part up, but I'll bring it up. It's very similar to what we're facing here in the United States with Donald Trump's health decline, right? So we got the Janet Pumps video talking about his bruised hands, the mark on his neck, his cankles, and all of these things combined with his memory loss and unable to complete a sentence and his sleepiness and his slurring, all of those things. But if you look back, and I'm sure you guys have noticed this, even to Donald Trump's first term, right? If you bring back any of the video clips, any of the, the fucking moments that are noticeable and memorable from his first term, like you can see a clear difference between him, like not only cognitively, not that he was ever cognitively there to begin with, but like there's a clear shift from just even 2016 Donald Trump to 2026 Donald Trump, both in looks, obviously in the way he speaks, the way that he carries himself. Like it's bad. It's getting bad. It has been getting bad. And obviously it's getting ever more noticeable. But the same thing seems to be happening to Vladimir Putin as happens, right? I mean, you age, you slow down, your body starts deteriorating. That's what takes place. But it's crazy when you see, or it's a lot more, I don't know, noticeable, prominent, kind of surprising when you see it happen to somebody that either calls himself a strong man or somebody that's been, kind of in a dictatorial role in his country for 20 something years at this point, somebody that's known as this, KGB suave kind of smooth talker, somebody that knows how to kind of, push everybody's buttons, like that type of aspect. When you see him kind of slurring his words, one of the more recent videos that went around was Vladimir Putin trying to say hurrah, right? So he could barely get the word out. It sounded very strange, honestly, and even people in Russia were talking about it. Anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. So we got a video that's going to be talking about that, and then obviously we get some frontline updates as well. So what do you say we dive into it? Once again, thank you guys so much in the chat for keeping this thing running, for getting us to 20K and beyond. Like I said, without your help and support and generosity and what you guys do for this channel, we would not be able to do this. So once again, thank you guys. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. And again, thank you to the mods that keep that chat a safe place down there. What do you say we dive on to, again, just a couple of clips from this that people are discussing. I won't subject you to too much of it, because I'm sure you'll be either seeing these clips elsewhere or have already seen them to begin with. Let me throw this on the screen. My apologies, but there was a few of them that, again, they're just too either good or bad to forget about or to not go over. First off, he starts right off with a fucking heater, with a banger, right? Coming straight off the fucking pipes, just really getting mixed up between Iran and Venezuela. So he wants to be talking about how it's the Iran war and the Iranian military that has like had its ships sunk and had the aircraft shot out of the sky and all of their leadership, eradicated and yada, 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 all that bullshit. But what he happens to say is Venezuela. But because he's surrounded by a room full of bitches, right? He's surrounded by a room full of sycophants, ass kissers, and bootlickers. Not one of them decided to speak up and be like, just so you know, so you said Venezuela, you might want to correct yourself so that the media doesn't have a fucking field day with the lack of cognitive ability you have to follow the line, to follow the plot right now. You know what I mean? But no, nobody said anything. You can see Marco Rubio to a certain extent, and obviously Pete Hegseth on the other side of him, just kind of like, oh, fuck. You know what I mean? Like, that's something we're probably going to have to answer for. But, this was, one of the first things that he in his.
We recently added nearly 1,000 low-cost.
Zip it. All right, and then we'll play this one. Let me throw this one on the screen again. He's mixing up Venezuela and Iran. He wants to be saying Iran, actually says Venezuela. Again, just showing you this guy's cognitive decline, and it's happening right in front of your face in broad daylight. And he's basically inviting the cameras to watch this, right? Nobody told him to invite the cameras to this cabinet meeting. He just did it himself and continues to do so. So this is pretty well documented, his decline. His inability to keep his eyes open is another huge fucking problem that people around the world seem to be noticing, right? Not only are his decisions very erratic and very dangerous, to world order, but, clearly the guy's not well. Clearly, between the bruised hands, his fucking swollen feet, you know what I mean? The marks on his necks, his mark on his neck, the neck in general, the fact that he can't put together a complete sentence, he can't stay awake, like all of these things leads everybody to kind of the same conclusion. The guy's not doing fucking well, right? To say the least.
I don't call it a war, I call it a conflict. Despite the conflict with Venezuela, who no longer has a Navy, no longer has an Air Force, no longer has...
Look at Marco Rubio. You can just see Marco Rubio's like, the left side of Marco's face there. And he wants to say something. Like anybody with a brain inside their heads would be like, what, let's take a second. Yeah, sorry, I'm sorry. I think you mean Iran. I'm sorry. I don't mean to correct you, but, I think, with the fake news media, I'm sure there's a way they could have spun it so it didn't make him look like an idiot. But, nobody is got the balls in that room at all to speak up whatsoever, to lose their proximity to power, to lose their fucking, their ability to profit off of their position in government right now, but they let him go on.
A lot of people that were leading the country into very bad places, their leadership is gone. Their second rung leadership is gone, and we're dealing with half of their third, because half of their third is gone too.
That's crazy, because I know you said Venezuela, but all of those talking points are typically what you associate with the war in Iran. So again, we'll probably have to clarify after Grandpa's done with his speech on what he actually meant. But there was several of these clips to come out, whether he's fallen asleep, whether he was caught.
A little bit, but a little bit is a doubling of the price.
And the eradication.
A little bit's a lot.
Stop playing. The next one continues to play. It pisses me off. This is Aaron Rupert saying Trump's brain is gone. He's claiming, again, he cut prices by 600%. We've heard him say that a bunch of times. We don't have to dive into that one. This is a pretty dumb one. Again, Donald Trump, just astounded. He's astounded to find out that the rest of the world is somehow bigger than the United States. I shit you not. I know it sounds ridiculous. It sounds crazy, but he thinks he's like, I don't know, struck gold. And he's just enlightening the shit out of everybody in that room right here. Listen to how just insanely ridiculous and asinine this is from a guy clearly that should be locked up watching Wheel of Fortune in some cell or a padded room at this point. But,
that I talked about would go from $10 to $20. The world is bigger than the U.S. Hard to believe, but it's true. So it's not like you cut it in the middle. You just had to go up a little bit, but a little bit is a doubling of a price. So a little bit's a lot.
Jesus Christ. A little bit is a lot of bit, only if it's a most a bit, but probably some of the bit. If you double the bit, it's sometimes tripling, but it depends on how you calculate those percentages and how you say it, because it could be 600% or it could be 83.3%. You never know. Unreal, this guy. And everybody sitting around him should be absolutely ashamed of themselves, as I mean, it's not like at this moment in time they should be, and should have been for quite some time, obviously. Here's another Trump RX claim where he says it's the hottest site on the planet. Don't have to go through that one too much. I think that's pretty clear. This is a good one where he says, again, he doesn't care about midterms, which is a good message to be sending to the American people and clearly to the RNC and the people inside of his party right now. The decisions that he's making, he doesn't give a shit about how that's affecting midterms. I don't know. It could be partly because he knows he's got the control and he's got the schmucks and the corrupt pieces of shit behind the scenes that are just going to throw out the will of the voters like they did in Virginia, that are just going to go on to redistrict and gerrymander maps to their favorability to make sure that Democrats don't even have a chance. Or it's just because, again, he knows he's got the people in the positions of power to get himself out of accountability for whatever illegal acts or damaging acts that he's gotten us involved in. But this is where he says, with his own lips, that he doesn't give a shit about midterms.
Economic system is broken down. They thought they were going to outweight me. We'll outweight him. He's got the midterms. I don't care about the midterms. Look what happened last night. That was the prelude to the midterms.
But they are outweighting him. That's the fucking ridiculous part, right? I mean, they are outweighting him. Iran is outweighing him. Right. We continue to talk about how people are astonished, surprised. It goes against everything that we thought. The fact that Iran still has the ability to withstand the blockade. Right. The fact that we talked about the days in which the amount of time in which they were able to withstand that blockade before things got to basically crisis level was a lot longer than people had originally anticipated. Not only that, but if you calculate that or you combine that with the reporting of their stockpile that they still have in place, the missiles and the drone capability that they still have in place. Clearly, they still have the ability to put mines in the Strait of Hormuz, if you're taking the word of the U.S. government for it, right? If you're going to talk about how the same thing that they've been doing this entire time now constitutes some sort of action against the United States, which warrants the United States response, as if like it's self-defense now that we're striking boats and then striking missile targets as well. I mean, again, what the order was in that, I'm sure, is being kind of lost in the fog of war. But again, take everything you hear from both sides, as we've been saying for this entirety, for the entirety of this conflict, with a grain of salt, because obviously both sides have the ability, the willingness, and stand to benefit from, the good propaganda from their side. So that's Trump saying he doesn't care about midterms. What's he say here? He wants to make a deal. Oh yeah, this is where he says, again, he's threatening to blow the country up. I think at some point he actually threatens to blow up the country of Oman too, if I'm not mistaken. I think I heard that right. But here he is talking about blowing up Iran again.
We're doing really equally as well with, but again, people don't want to write about it, with Iran. Iran is very much intent. They want very much to make a deal. So far, they haven't gotten there. We're not satisfied with it, but we will be. We will be either that or we'll have to just finish the job. But their Navy is gone, as I've said 1,000 times. Their Navy is gone. Their Air Force is gone. Everything's gone, and they're negotiating.
Sorry, can you clarify? Is that Venezuela or Iran you're talking about? I just want to make sure we're on the same page here, talking about the same country, because we're talking about two vastly different, nations in the way that they're conducted and governed as well.
On fumes. We'll see what happens. Maybe we have to go back and finish it. Maybe we don't. Right now, I mean, you can speak to Steve Witkoff and Jared. They're doing a good job. But right now, I think it looks like they want to just make a deal. They want to. They have. I don't think they have a choice. They're just going back to the internet because they're getting clobbered. Their economy is in free fall. We're doing really equally.
So again, threatening once again to blow up. Wants very much to make a deal, threatens to blow up the country if they don't. Here's where he compares J.D. Vance to Elliot Ness, who died in 1957. Just another ridiculous part of this supposed, cabinet hearing of what they want to call this. Here's another one. He says that Vance does a good enough job rooting out fraud. We'll have a balanced budget without having to do anything, which is, again, something that they're pushing. I heard Mark Wayne Mullen talk about this on Newsmax, I believe he was, that said, if we can get rid of all the Biden era fraud, we won't have to do anything, and the budget will somehow self-balance itself out. It's like, with these fucking people, one of the dumbest people in Congress, one of the dumbest people now working and is affiliated with our government is Mark Wayne Mullen, and that's who we're going to listen to as far as what we have to do to decrease our deficit and to to get some of the debt down and shit, and how to balance the budget. No, come on now. This is, again, Donald Trump going on a racist screed about Somalians. basically saying that they're all crooks. Look what they've done to Minnesota. They're crooked as hell. They're all crooks. And I think he names Ilhan Omar, as he typically does when referencing Somalians and anybody in Minnesota typically. So again, there's another racist rant from the president.
They're all crooks. The Somalians, what they've done to Minnesota, the Somalians, they're crooked as hell. Ilhan Omar, crooked as hell. They're all crooks. And we got them. We got them. Now we're putting the clamps on. But boy, I tell you, that's an impressive group of guys that you have behind you. I was watching that, and a couple of very strong women too. But they're all crooks.
I'm surprised he didn't pull out the famous. I'm sure you guys have heard.
Eating the dogs, the people that came in, they're eating the cats. They're eating the pets of the people that live there.
I'm surprised that didn't come out in the meeting today as part of his racist screed there. But we go on. He's continuing to talk about the number of fraudulent people on Social Security, 115, 125 years old, part of his ongoing bullshit that he's been spewing for quite some time here. Giving a round of applause to outgoing Tulsi Gabbard. Don't need to get into that too much. Talking about extraterrestrial bullshit. Secretary of War, central casting. He loves war. I mean, again, these people just get off on bombs being dropped, on innocent civilians losing their life, on just being able to control, some of the most powerful military equipment and weaponry known to man. They cannot help but get off on this. So this is where Trump talks about how Pete Hegseth just loves war. It's just something that he's destined to see, destined to be the head of, destined to lead, and wants to see continue, apparently. Again, I'm paraphrasing for Trump, of course, but again, what else can you get out of this when we're talking about a very illegal and destabilizing war, and how Pete Hegseth just loves it, right? Just something that he loves, and the little chuckle and giggle that they get out of this.
Secretary of State Marco Rubio, another one. I mean, we have great people. And the Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, central casting, he loves war. I don't
know. He just loves war. He loves dead babies. You should have seen him after the fucking girls' school was hit. He was chuckling up a storm over there. Holy shit. At the Pentagon was a laughter. It was just awash with laughter after we struck that girls' school and killed all them children. And I mean, the innocent civilians that we've taken out, nothing makes Pete sleep better at night than knowing just how many innocent civilians we're responsible for killing, both inside Iran, Venezuela, you name it at this point, right? I mean, fucking everywhere. And Cuba. I mean, the list just continues to grow. This is J.D. Vance gets his first opportunity to gargle Trump. I think I'll spare you of that one. Marco Rubio putting Trump to sleep again. Here's a couple clips where, it's clear that Donald Trump's struggling to keep his eyes open. I think people are kind of stretching when we say sleeping at a lot of points, but it's definitely him struggling to keep his eyes open at a lot of these points. So here he is where Marco Rubio is speaking in that exact situation.
On Venezuela, that process continues, that three-phase process, of obviously stabilization.
I mean, he looks high. He looks fucking high, right? It's one of those moments where it's like the junkie, trying not to nod out. You know what I mean? Like, that's what it reminds me of. That's what it reminds me. It's just a guy that doesn't give a shit there's cameras there. It doesn't even seem like he's worried about the optics of this, but just literally is trying to fight his eyelids just because at this point. You know what I mean? I don't even know. That's what it looks like to me. Like, I feel like if he stood up, he'd be in like the fentanyl. Like, he'd be one of those people where his nose was scraping the fucking ground, but he somehow didn't ever fall over. Like, that's what, like, his head's ready to just droop into his chest at any point now.
Recovery and transition. I would just say, just since January 3rd of this year.
I mean, he's got he looks up and he doesn't, you got to figure out where he is for a second, and he's not really focusing on anything. Like, when you wake somebody up in the middle of their sleep, that's the look that you get. Like, what? Like, that's the exact look we get 99% of the time from Donald Trump at this point. But I think there was other moments as well, but not to spend too much time on this clown show of a cabinet meeting, talking about gas prices going down, which is ironic considering the reporting that we're hearing now about basically it's going to be about till 2032, as some experts are saying, before we actually see consistent gas prices below $3 once again. Here's Donald Trump once again talking about a very long lake. We call it the reflecting lake. It's the reflecting pool. Of course, I don't think he's gotten that right. He hasn't gotten that one correct once yet. It's between the Lincoln Monument. I think it's the Lincoln Memorial, if I'm not mistaken. Nobody's ever seen anything like it, longer than the tallest building in the world, which is again false. As I saw reported, I think there's building some 700 feet Again, if you laid it on their side, that would be longer than the reflecting pool. And then again, calling it the Lincoln Monument, it's the Lincoln Memorial. But again, what would you expect from this thick-headed, dough-headed piece of shit, right? We made the surface as good as it can be. Now it's becoming a beautiful blue, very thick. You can think of it as a sophisticated form of rubber. Talking about, again, the reflecting, his paint job that he's doing there down at the reflecting pool. We're now looking at the World War II fountain because that's also in pretty bad shape. Again, Donald Trump's ongoing plot and ploy to go out there and spend as much money as humanly possible on things that nobody wants to see, nobody asked for at a time we're engaged in a war and we're seeing rising costs for every single American. But, you know, what the fuck do I know? But I think that's pretty much it. There was a couple other moments where he was struggling to keep his eyes open. Definitely didn't look like he was with it. And that was probably why these people were kissing his ass, but not doing it to his kind of liking, not doing it to the extent that he wants them to. So again, didn't gather much of his attention. So, all right, let's dive on to the Jen and Pumps there. We'll take a look at Jen and Pumps, taking a look at and talking about Donald Trump's health. I think it kind of flows nicely, segues nicely into this. Let me throw this on the screen here. This is titled, Doctors Diagnose Trump After Alarming Hospital Visit. He's hiding it from the public. Again, this is going with the, the speculation from Donald Trump's dental visits and Benjamin Netanyahu's visits to the hospital that he's had. Now, Donald Trump's checkup, his yearly checkup that he's had about 17 and a half times a year at this point. So again, a lot of people taking a look at the frequency in which Donald Trump is now going to his doctors and having to get looked at, and the excuses that the administration is putting out, the reasons that they're giving as to why he's making these trips. They're talking about this, and obviously the noticeable change and shift we've seen in his health, whether it's, again, his cankles, the bruising on both of his hands, the shit on his neck that we've seen. It continues. The list continues. But here's, again, Jen and Pumps talking about Donald Trump's declining health. Let's see what trouble we can get into with these ladies here. I appreciate you guys. Hit that like button. I'm Boston Brian. This is Blunt Politics. Subscribe to the channel if you like what you're hearing. If you like what you're seeing, please feel free to do so. And I very much appreciate you if you do. Thank you.
I'm just going to say it. Trump looks half dead. I mean, I'm so tired of the press.
I knew it wouldn't disappoint, right? I knew it wouldn't disappoint. It typically never does when they'll fucking, they're just hammering away on Trumpty Dumpty here when fucking cankles himself, right? So again, I thought this would probably put a couple smiles on some people's faces. So, what do you say?
It's like coming on, the president is having a joint chief meeting and he's doing all of these big stuff. And it's like, the president is half dead. They are weaned at burying this guy. And I'm not a medical doctor, but I'm going to go ahead and diagnose him anyway, because corporate news isn't doing it. Pop this up. All right. Image number one, we have a very orange, heavily makeup face.
I mean, honestly, though, quite honestly, if I had told you, like, if you didn't know anything that was going on, if you were like fucking Brendan Fraser and Encino Man and just got fucking dug out of an ice cube for the last, 30,000 years, and you didn't know a goddamn thing, and I showed you these pictures, and I was like, yeah, this is pictures of a dead guy. This is pictures of a guy that is deceased, that died from, natural causes, unhealthy eating, unhealthy diet, lack of exercise, that type of thing. The caveman would be like, oh yeah, that makes sense. I definitely feel like I'm looking at pictures of a deceased human being. I don't think I would have trouble believing that one bit. I mean, you got Donald Trump's Oompa Loompa face, on the top far left there, and then you got the clear and obvious those hands. That actually might be Mitch McConnell's hands. I'm not sure. We need that to be confirmed. We need that corroborated as far as whether or not that's even Donald Trump's hands. Those look like Mitch McConnell's decrepit hands. And then obviously you got the marks on Donald Trump's neck that was brought up. And then clearly you can see the cankles. That has been an ongoing problem and an ongoing story for Trump for quite some time now. So
affirming care that apparently they oppose. I don't care if men wear makeup, but MAGA does. Completely asleep in the Oval Office, asleep while at duty, while the country's at war. This man is asleep. Image number two, you see these disgusting bruised hands. It looks like, what is it called? Necropsy? Is that where the skin is dying?
What, gangrene?
Necrosis? Is that what she's thinking of? Necrosis? Right? I believe that's the word she's looking for.
Gangrene, mange.
Mange.
Number three, we've got some sort of STD on his neck. Again, I'm not a medical doctor, but in my non-medical opinion, we have a chlamydia outbreak, crabs, something like that here on the neck. And image number four, we have the cankles the size of a linebacker. And let's just say the linebacker recently, the football player that Trump said had thighs that were tree trunks and was a good looking guy when he was acting gay again the other day in New York at a rally. So this is just what
he's actually, I mean, not to get sidetracked here, but he's been acting fucking really gay lately. I mean, how many times have we seen clips of being like, I hate good looking men. I don't want to be around good looking men. It's like, what are you, too tempted? Right? What, did you not trust yourself around good looking people? Right. I don't know. It's strange. And then he, refers back to, good looking women, which is never a good look with somebody that has the history that he has. But, the amount of times in which he's talked about going into the crowd and kissing men, and like, it's not really crazy. I don't think it's really too out of the realm of possibilities to assume that this guy's got a couple, a couple pounds light in the loafers, we'll just say.
See, the man is always in a suit from here all the way down. These are just what we can see. But we also have video evidence. Here he is in a circle jerk cabinet meeting today. Play the clip.
They are selling oil in the market at market.
We should call it that from now on, the circle jerk cabinet meetings. Just a big fucking circle jerk on a cookie, and whoever does it best doesn't have to eat the cookie. Whoever doesn't fucking praise Donald Trump enough has to eat the cookie at the end of it. I mean, I don't think they'd like step back if anybody said that they were playing that game. It seems, it seems to fit.
Market rates, the money's going to an account.
Totally fallen asleep, which, to his defense,
Look at him. He literally looks like somebody that like doesn't know where he is, right? Doesn't give a shit about what's being talked about, right? Clearly is somebody like longing for a bed at this point. Like he just looks like just completely out of it, as is typical nowadays.
Painfully boring. I mean, dreadfully boring. No riz whatsoever. I can fall asleep listening to little Marco drone on because I don't think he's ever said anything interesting. And so there he is, just humiliating little Marco again. Pumps, what is your medical diagnosis on all of these things?
Well, I'm not a medical doctor, but I have the same Juris Doctorate that R.F. Kennedy Jr. does. So I am qualified to be in charge of Health and Human Services. And I can just tell you right now, something is not right with his heart. Congestive heart failure, I don't know. But blood is not going everywhere it's supposed to go. The hands, I've long said, they're giving IV, it's in the hands. We are so past him being fit for office. I mean, mentally, I don't think
it's pretty clear to everybody there's something going on, right? There's absolutely something going on, and I don't blame people for speculating as to what the causes may be for all of these signs and symptoms that we're seeing. It's when I hear people start, getting into like specific dates on when this guy's going to croak, like I start having a problem. We don't fucking know, right? We just, it's impossible for us to know for sure. Again, speculation is part of the society, and especially when you're not getting transparency, especially when you're not getting answers from the person that we're talking about, it leaves everybody open to speculation. That's the only thing you're left with at that point, and taking the visual evidence that you have in front of your face and trying to figure out what the fuck is going on, right? So I understand that much and have absolutely no problem, but it's when people start being like, well, this is my experience and I know that he's going to be gone by this time in 2 months or 2 weeks. Like, I think that gives people a false sense of security, right? We don't know. I'm sure a lot of people in your families have lived with ailments, have lived with signs and symptoms much like these for years on years, right? So I think it's better off that we plan for this asshole, this scumbag to be around, and hopefully we could see him in a prison cell, right? Not likely, but that's what we long for, right? That's what he deserves. That would, in a just world, that's what we'll see. And then again, if we wake up someday where either him or Netanyahu with this cancer are no longer with us, let's just say, then I'll be there popping the champagne bottles with you guys. I'll be the first one there to a buzz, let's just say. But I just I get the ick kind of when people start giving like specific timelines and dates and when we're definitely going to see something and what we're definitely looking at. Like, you just don't know, right? At the end of the day, you don't know. It's impossible to say yes or no. Better off, continuing the fight and planning on this going on for longer. And if, again, like I said, we wake up and he's no longer with us, then, we can recalibrate at that moment in time. Once the hangover has subsided, then we can figure out where we're going from there. You know what I mean?
Ever there physically. When they talk about a third term, I'm like, bitch, please, if we can get through the summer, get us to Labor Day. I mean, we're going to Walter Reed all the time. Like, this is not normal. And what cracks me up is the White House response. Well, he's so healthy. And it's just like, shut the fuck up. Anybody with
And she's right, though. I mean, the more Stephen Chung is out there like, oh, you guys don't know what the fuck you're talking about, and this is just a regularly scheduled visit. You know, he's working at 8:30, he's working at 9:30, he's working at 10:30. Well, clearly that's not a good schedule for the guy, right? If he's fucking clearly falling asleep, can't keep his goddamn eyes open during what's supposed to be a very important cabinet meeting, maybe we should fucking think about the timelines. Maybe we should think about the bedtimes that grandpa's now working with, right? I don't know. I'm just saying, not a good look for America, not a good look for the president of the United States to be sleeping, to be struggling mightily to keep his fucking eyes open at every point during every important meeting, every important phone call, every interview that he's taken, anytime he's in front or sitting down in front of people in the Oval Office. I mean, it's starting to get we're getting clip after clip after clip after clip. And for, again, somebody who consistently brought up sleepy Joe Biden, this isn't a very good fucking look. This is, again, a big slap in the face that we could bring back his, comments and past rhetoric against him. Like, it's pretty easy to see how you could do that at this point.
2 eyeballs knows he is 1 foot in the grave.
So you mentioned Walter Reed, and he went to Walter Reed over Memorial Day weekend, third time in 13 months, despite the aforementioned perfect health put out by his propaganda machine. And he was supposed to go to Camp David today to do the circle jerk, effusive praise, all of the sycophant brown nosers, boring snooze fest, beta male parade at the cabinet meeting. And after this doctor's meeting, the White House was like, oh no, we're going to have it at the White House because of weather. Interestingly, I went and looked at the weather in the Washington, D.C. area, and it showed rain, 35% chance at 4 p.m. Again, I'm not a medical doctor and I'm not a meteorologist, but I'm calling bullshit on all of this. I think the real doctors at Walter Reed were like, you need to stay close while these meds kick in. We can't have you out at Walter Reed if something happens. Pop up this headline. Washington Post, President Trump canceled a trip with his cabinet to Camp David, citing forecasts of bad weather as the reason he won't make what would have been a rare visit to the rural presidential retreat. Instead, Trump said he will convene at the White House.
Look at fucking the hunchback. You see that shit? Jesus Christ. Look at that hunch. That's not a healthy hunch right there. You know what I mean? Not that there is a healthy hunch out there, but I have a hunch that that's not a healthy one. I'm just going to say. Plus, it's probably not a good look, and I'm sure not well received for the military and the people that are responsible for, getting the president to and fro, whether it's, the helicopters or Air Force One in general, to say that they couldn't fly in inclement weather, right? They can't fly in rain or wind. I think they'd be the first people to be like, oh, I have no fucking problem flying you there right now. I mean, if you wanted to go, we could go in a heartbeat. So, don't be blaming the weather. Don't be blaming my fucking piloting skills and the fact that you couldn't get to Camp David. So as to what the definitive reasoning was behind that, obviously it's all speculation because, like I said, when you're left with, no answers and the lack of transparency that we get from, this president, then that's clearly the only thing that we're left with is speculation and putting the pieces to the puzzle that we can see in front of our faces together to get some sort of clear picture or some sort of indication as to what's happening now, where we're likely to go, anything about, in information about his health or anything like that. So I thought it would be funny as it was to dive into a little bit of Jen and Pump's thoughts on his declining health, which again goes hand in hand with some of the videos that we'll see coming up here about Vladimir Putin's health, right? So, it's crazy the consistencies and the comparisons that you can make to, the autocrats and the dictators and the way that they represent themselves and the way that they abuse their power and, enrich themselves and the way that they, try to hide their declining health. It's a pretty consistent through line in history of people that have done that. But speaking of a declining through line, what do we say we bring up this video here? Kyle Kalinske put this video together, just a short video, but this is kind of added on to some of the other reporting that I've seen here of JD Vance kind of, I don't know, not being on the back burner so much, but definitely kind of feeling the fact that he's getting slowly thrown down the rungs of the ladder. Like he's seeing Marco Rubio having more and more of a position, more and more, roles to play, as it were, next to Donald Trump. JD Vance not not getting the seat where his face was on camera. I don't know if that was kind of a backhanded slap at JD Vance, but in the cabinet meeting, you could see Pete Hegseth, you could see Marco Rubio on the other side of Trump, but I think you were just looking at JD Vance's bald spot, if I remember correctly. But this is talking about in his title, Trump furious with JD Vance and wants him gone. So is there a rift going on? Is it the fact that JD Vance has tried to distance himself to at least some extent from Donald Trump's decisions in the Iran war? Again, combine this with the reporting that JD Vance is now allegedly suspecting that he's going to kind of put a hold on his 2028 presidential run because of the associations with the Trump administration and the disastrous, the policies that they've put in place in this second administration. But again, like I said, until we kind of hear the real deal, until we figure out and hear from the horse's mouth himself, we're kind of, trying to speculate and see what the hell is kind of really going on. So like I said, this is just a real quick video detailing just some of what we're hearing about JD Vance's relationship with Donald Trump. Is he kind of on the outs here? Are they fighting more behind the scenes than is being, than we're led to believe or is being reported on by mainstream media? Let's just see if we get any details or any information from Kyle. I appreciate you guys. Like I said, my name's Brian. This is Blunt Politics. Make sure you hit that like button. Subscribe to the channel if you do find yourself coming back, liking what you're hearing, liking what you're seeing. It helps the channel a lot, and I would really, really appreciate it. So let's see here. Like we said, Trump furious with JD Vance and wants him gone. Let's see what information Kyle's got for us.
All right, y'all, we got some juicy rumors that are flying around there that I have to share with you here. So take a look at this. JD Vance is reportedly becoming more isolated within Trump's administration after Tulsi Gabbard resigned. His non-interventionist stance on Iran has reportedly put him at odds with Trump, while Marco Rubio has gained influence. Some reports also suggest Vance could skip a 2028 presidential run to avoid being tied to recent controversies. So this is from the Daily Mail. Now, admittedly, Daily Mail is hit or miss. Oftentimes they miss. But there's been a lot of chatter that JD Vance has the wherewithal to realize that whichever candidate runs as a Republican in 2020.
And you know what this reminds me of? And again, this might be a little bit of an aside here, but do you remember when John Fetterman had a chance to put JD Vance in the position to be the tie-breaking vote on the War Powers resolution, right? And JD Vance, again, we have seen try to, at least to some extent, try to distance himself from this administration's disastrous decision to enact this war. So the political, the political position and situation that JD Vance would have been in there would have been a diabolical one. But again, he didn't have to worry about that because obviously John Fetterman is a demented old fool at this point and is just, a Republican in Democrats' clothing with a D at the end of his name at this point. But, it would have been a definite situation for JD Vance to have to contend with in the future if, in fact, John Fetterman did the right thing and ended up voting for that.
28 is cooked. Their barbecue chicken. Now, they could steal it, as I'm sure they're planning on doing in 2026 and 2028, but the actual mandate of the people in no way, shape, or form will be granted to a Republican. People are fucking furious with Trump. They're fucking furious with MAGA. They're furious with the Republicans. And there's a revolt in this country. There's a revolt, and the revolt is absolutely tied to higher gas prices. It's absolutely tied to higher grocery prices. It's absolutely tied to unemployment going up. It's absolutely tied to the Epstein files and the illegal Iran war. And so a guy, JD Vance, is not an idiot. He knows, well, he is an idiot, but he's not as big of an idiot as many of the other people in the regime. And he knows when we said 48 times on the campaign trail that we're the anti-war people, we're the pro-peace ticket, that has to mean something to one extent or another. You can't do a total fucking 180 and not square the circle at all and just plow ahead and act like everybody should support you. Are you fucking stupid? And they are. Many of them are. But JD Vance knows this doesn't work, right? Like, this isn't going to work. So skipping 2028 would actually be the smartest move he can make because he's saving himself inevitable embarrassment. Whoever the Republican nominee is, like, the actual votes will be overwhelmingly against the Republican. Guaranteed. Guaranteed. Okay? But they're saying now that Trump is pissed at him, but there's a deeper reason for that too, allegedly. Look at this. Just heard a wild rumor from someone I trust that works at JP Morgan. The buzz is that Trump has been exploring ways to force Vice President Vance out of office. He cannot fire him legally unless Vance resigns. The one way for him to be removed is to be impeached by the House, with 2/3 of the Senate voting to remove. Rumblings on the street is that Vance got caught leaking something Trump didn't like, something only Vance could have known. The Camp David cabinet meeting was a leak trap operation. They caught him. So what this person is saying is they were questioning JD Vance's loyalty, right? They gave him some information that only he knew. Then JD Vance took that to the media, leaked it to the media, but it was a trap because they only told him that. So they know now that he's leaking shit, right? And that's why Trump also, according to this theory, this would be why Trump came out and said, oh, we're not actually going to Camp David today. The weather's bad. Yeah, we're not going to go. There was never a plan. There was never actually a planned trip to Camp David. It was just an attempt to try to catch J.D. Vance leaking to the media, which they view that as the biggest.
Wow, a little rope-a-dope allegedly, huh? A little rope-a-dope, putting the bait out there, seeing if J.D. Vance would take the bait. And again, per the rumors, allegedly, as is being speculated here, J.D. Vance took said bait, and that would kind of lead us at least to an answer, a little bit better of an answer as to why they didn't utilize Camp David, why they never went to Camp David. And it sure as fuck wasn't because of the weather or the military's inability to fly through fucking rain or wind or anything like that. So again, to this point, and like he said, this is speculation, this is rumors at this point. But again, this is combined with a lot more reporting. It has been a consistent through line, obviously, in the war in Iran. J.D. Vance's, the original reporting that he was trying to talk Trump out of it, yada, yada, yada. Obviously, some of the statements and like the mealy mouth responses that he's given lately probably haven't gone much to put him on Donald Trump's good side. And again, the animosity and kind of the jealousy that has been reported on between J.D. Vance and Marco Rubio. Like, is this kind of all one big thing happening behind the scenes? Is it about to kick off, or is it again just rumors and speculation? Unconfirmed, uncorroborated, and being made up. It's kind of hard to tell at this point, but the amount of reporting out there suggests there's something going on. What exactly is happening? Obviously, we'll find out at some point in time, but it's clear that there is there's some cracks forming on the ice, let's just say, with the relationship between Donald Trump and J.D. Vance, whether or not that's because of J.D. Vance's, aspirations for, political greatness and, becoming president at some point in time, and recognizing the writing on the wall and the damage that Donald Trump and his administration and what they've done in this second term to the American people and the world economy writ large. Or if it's something else behind the scenes, obviously, like I said, remains to be seen. But let's see.
Crime of all, right? And allegedly, they caught him. And so Trump is allegedly, reportedly, fucking furious behind the scenes. He's already furious because there's tension there.
Oh, and again, this is why a lot of people are thinking that, J.D. Vance getting like the shit end of the stick as far as the, his assignments, where the administration is sending him. Sending him to help European elections. Meanwhile, that European election was never going to go their way, kind of leaving J.D. Vance hanging out there to dry a little bit, right? He's, whether it's the Pope or, again, the fraud investigations and the fraud that he's supposed to be in charge of now. It's kind of like, keeping J.D. Vance on the back burners. It's not giving him any prominent role, really, for a reason. And I don't know if these are like, again, backhanded attempts to keep him out of the limelight, to make sure that he has no, political career going ahead, or at least it can't be had. He can't make his political career on the back of Donald Trump's administration, whatever it may be. I'm sure there's jealousy and bullshittery going on behind the scenes.
With Tulsi Gabbard stepping aside, now she says because my husband has bone cancer, but there's also ideological policy stuff there too. Trump feels like he can't trust the people who at any point were actually anti-war. And there's a similar thing going with J.D. Vance here, where his rhetoric was relatively anti-war. Marco Rubio has always been a warmonger. Now Trump feels more comfortable with Marco Rubio because Trump is warmongering fucking everywhere. You see how this game is played. See
Marco Rubio's willingness to talk big and bad about Cuba, right, goes hand in hand with Donald Trump's rhetoric about Cuba. You can see why that would be, a benefit, why Donald Trump would like that, why he'd keep Marco Rubio closer than he would J.D. Vance, who's not really out there towing the line to the extent that Pete Hegseth and the rest of these cocksuckers are, right? So you can see kind of a little bit of why the speculation about why the rumors may in fact have a little bit of meat on that bone and may in fact kind of have some weight behind them, really. But one of the reasons at least that J.D. Vance knows how disastrous it is to kind of affiliate himself with this administration going forward is things like this, right? This is Mediaite. Excuse me, I don't know why the picture didn't show up here, but this is CNN expert predicts gas prices won't drop below $3 in the next 6 years. And again, that is if we got a deal done right this second. If that's straight open right this second, that's what we're looking at. So the longer this persists, right, the longer that strait is closed, the longer this seemingly is pushed into the future. And whether it's 2030, 2031, 2032, 6 months, 10 months is probably anybody's guess, but it's definitely not a good thing. The further on down the road, the further into the future we're looking at it getting back to some sort of normalcy as far as gas prices are concerned. But, just a little bit from this. This says, if you were hoping gas prices would fall to pre-Iran war levels before summertime, you're going to have to wait a little bit longer to plan that road trip. According to CNN Business, senior reporter David Goldman, he says, quote, you want $3 gas again? You're going to have to wait maybe 6 years, Goldman predicted during a Tuesday appearance on The Situation Room. The answer stunned co-host Pamela Brown, who could be hearing, letting out an exasperated what off camera. I'm sorry, did I hear you correctly? Did you say 2032? Brown asked him. Goldman said that was unfortunately correct based on what the oil futures market is predicting. For gas to get below $3 per gallon in the United States, Goldman said that the price of Brent crude oil would have to drop below $70 per barrel. But he said that there are a lot of roadblocks in the way of making that happen, even if Trump cuts a deal at the end of to end the Iran war in a matter of days. We've heard this pretty consistently throughout this. Like, even if it ends right this second, doesn't mean that everything just shifts back. Unlike what you're hearing from Donald Trump's cabinet, people like Hassett, people like Bessent, obviously people like Rubio, J.D. Vance, Pete Hegseth, saying that, the second that a deal is signed or the second that this is stopped, that everything kind of returns to normal. Everything goes not only back to pre-Iran war levels, but will drop even further than that, which is, again, just a ridiculous thought, a ridiculous fucking statement that they make, considering that not any of the experts that I've seen have corroborated or confirmed that would be likely to happen. In fact, it's been the total and complete opposite. That's very unlikely to see for us to see happen. But this goes on here because there's a clip that I pulled up here from, I believe, Breaking Points, where they're discussing this same thing, and I think they have the actual clip from CNN. So instead of reading through the article there on Mediaite, I figure we'll play the clip here. And this is again talking about the fact that markets predict no $3 gas until 2032. And think of what effect and impact that will have on your life if you have to consistently factor that into your budget for years to come. I mean, just days and weeks is enough for everybody to kind of start losing their minds, for everybody to start being like, okay, this is having a real impact on my budget, a real impact on my finances. So obviously the months that we've gone into this is having a greater impact. And then if it stems to years, obviously that just goes up exponentially. So I just wanted to see what other info. And like I said, the clip from that CNN guy is included in this, if I'm not mistaken. So again, hit that like button. My name is Brian. This is Blunt Politics. And we're talking about $3 gas, not likely to be seen until 2032, as said by a CNN expert.
About the tax cut bill. And now most calculations show that the rise in gas prices because of the Iran war has offset the savings from the, quote, one big beautiful bill for the average American. And gas prices, this is another clip we want to bring you from a CNN analyst. What is going to happen in gas prices, even if there is a lasting ceasefire negotiated, D3?
So how long is it going to be before we actually start to see some relief? Look at this. This is where we were before the war started. This is where we are right now. There's a huge amount of time that it's going to take, according to the futures market, before we get back down to that sub $70 an oil level. Look at this, 2032. So you want $3 gas again? You're going to have to wait maybe 6 years. And so what does that mean for everything? Look at this. Produce, clothing, airfare, gas, shipping, all of these rely on high gas prices, high oil prices. All of them are going to continue to be more expensive as long as this lasts.
I'm sorry, did I hear you correctly? Did you say 2032?
Yeah. So if you look at this, this tells you what the oil market is predicting prices will be in the future. We don't get back down to this level until 2032. That's the prediction.
Wall Street correspondent Ryan Grimm standing by now to react to these oil futures. What do we think? Is that a reliable metric of what we can expect to see?
I mean, we'll see, but like those high numbers are going to push an enormous amount of investment into clean energy. Ironically, because Trump, as one of his first acts, overturned the IRA and ripped out all of the government support. The previous kind of neoliberal approach to addressing climate change was to do a carbon tax, which would increase the price of all carbon-based fuels and oil, gas, and that increase would then kind of pressure consumers and businesses to move into the clean energy market. Like that was the original approach. People rioted in the streets over it. and so policymakers were like, oh, actually, like making people's lives harder is not a popular political thing to do, and so our project is going to fail. Let's instead just do a lot of government investment and incentivizing into the clean energy industry. And then Trump ripped that apart. What Trump has done is gone back to the original carbon tax. What he described on the screen there is a 6-year unrepealable carbon tax that was passed without going through Congress, without
and again, I don't know what system or software they use to calculate or to predict, the dates in which it's going to return back to Iran war levels or under $3 a gallon gas there. But obviously, not good news for anybody that has to calculate that into their budget for the next 6 years. And again, even if it's 2 years, even if it's a year, we're talking about substantially more damage being done to people. And again, it's not just the United States. It is, again, we consistently tell you the world at large here that is being affected by this, is being impacted by this. And the longer it goes on, the more impact we're going to see from that. So I just figured I'd, play that as it was reported because, it's something that we've consistently said, we've consistently talked about, has been consistently reported that this doesn't just go back to normal, much like COVID, right? Maybe not on that great of a scale yet. Who knows? Maybe it is on that great of a scale at this point. But once the world reopened, once all the stores and businesses and corporations and everything started flowing again, like we didn't automatically go back to where we were before COVID. It took a considerable amount of time to get the country back on track, to get global trade, global shipping, trade partners back together. Noticing or recognizing or dealing with what, corporations went out of business, what suppliers you used to get your information or your fabric from, or your whatever you get, or whatever, business that you're in, whatever job that you have, whatever trade it is. If you get something from a specific supplier and that supplier goes out of business, you then have to find another supplier, and maybe it's further away, which again, raises the cost of your business, what you have to, spend to do your business to get that product to you. Right. So again, this whole thing is a big fucking a big snowball that goes downhill very quickly. And, once this is started, once these wars are enacted, and once the economic downfall starts happening, it's very difficult to reverse that. It's very hard to get the ball rolling again in the right direction. So, just to show you how much of an impact this is having or could possibly have, 2032. Before we start seeing under $3 a gallon, under $3 a gallon gas again here in the United States is a scary goddamn thought. I could tell you that much. And again, I don't know. I'm consistently surprised at the ability that we have in this country to continuously take a kick in the nuts, to continuously get punched in the face and not react in the way that you would think a normal person would react. Like, we're still not pissed off enough in this country. I know a lot of you guys in the chat are. I know a lot of us here as lefties and progressives are pissed off enough, but to a large extent, this country is talking a lot, but not really doing a lot of action, not really seeing a lot of action as far as being really pissed off with the corruption, with the removal of rights, with the degradation of partnerships and our allies across the world, and lack of help that we're seeing here with allies that are engaged in a full-scale war. Whatever it may be, we're not pissed off enough. Right, when we start seeing that the president is putting in amendments to fucking, a $10 billion lawsuit that he had against his own company that he threw out, but the DOJ just decided to give him a $1.776 billion slush fund to hand over to his militia, his private fucking military people that committed crimes, that beat cops to death on January 6th, right? All the people that went on to commit the white collar crimes behind the scenes, whether it was the fake electors or anybody else that had a fucking hand in this, in the 2020 election and trying to overthrow a free and fair election, are now going to get, enriched because of this asshole. But, if you're not pissed off about that, if that doesn't make us march in the streets, I'm not sure what will. I don't know what that line in the sand is. I'm still kind of, really shook every single day by the frog in the boiling water theory and just how much boiling water we're fucking ready to take. Because it seems like a lot more than we should be taking, and it seems like we should be reacting in a much bigger way than what we are reacting and how we are reacting here in this country to what's actually taking place and the degradation to our society that we're seeing. But again, that's just my opinion. But, like I said, if you want to blame anybody for my radicalization, you can blame nobody other than Donald Trump and the Republican fucking party. So stick it up your ass if you have a problem with it. That's what I got to say. All right. Time for some Republican on Republican violence. MAGA first. I mean, not MAGA first. America first versus the MAGA cult that is still in here, or the people that are responsible for the MAGA cult. I don't know how you'd explain this. It's just Republicans calling out Republicans for supporting Republicans, but now calling out Republicans. It's strange, but it's Valhalla VFT here. That's not him, but this is calling out Megyn Kelly for now calling out Donald Trump, but originally being on the Donald Trump cuck train. Right. So you can see how this kind of gets messy. This kind of gets mumbled jumbled. But like I said, grab your popcorn, grab an adult beverage, smoke them if you got them. We are going to highlight, we are going to spotlight any, again, Republican on Republican calling outism. Any of these people that are now making fun of the people responsible for the situation that we're now in, and all of a sudden seeing the light after, 12 years of this fucking son of a bitch being in politics. But just a couple minutes of this. We don't have to really dive into much. But Megyn Kelly's been making the rounds as far as some clips recently. She was on, the Hodge Twins podcast. I think he actually talks about this clip. So like I said, let's dive into this one. This is Valhalla VFT, America First against the MAGA cult, I guess we'll call this one. Play.
To be quite as, widespread as it's been, and like the self-dealing and the lining of his and his family's pockets.
Yeah, I know, right? Just let it go, man. He's fucking up everything. Just call it what it is. Like, you don't have to fucking cap for this dude.
Recently, but he can't be charged with anything. Or the latest thing is that he and his kids and his company cannot be audited.
Oh, that's cool.
That is cool. That's
dude, let's do it. And then the next day, that's his problem. He keeps saying, "Yeah, let's do it." He's getting a text from BB. He goes, "Yeah, it always works out for me." Shut down the street. He gives a
Right, so all of these bitches here that are now trying to make fun of him or trying to distance himself from the Trump administration here because of the ridiculousness and the shit that we've seen and the corruption and obviously the detriment to society that we've seen, clearly here being shown to have some hand in getting us to this position, whether it's having Trump on your podcast or, pumping him up for your fucking social media feed or whatever. Like, you don't get to just erase this accountability. You don't just get to erase this phase in history and being, again, responsible in some way, shape, or form to some degree in getting us this Donald Trump second administration here. Nah, not going to fucking happen. So, this is quite clearly Valhalla VFT calling these people out for trying to, again, Homer Simpson their way back into the bush, but we're trying to draw them right back out. This is like me saying that I don't want these assholes to be able to throw that MAGA hat, that red MAGA hat into the fireplace. I want to stitch that fucking hat onto these people's foreheads for the rest of their days so they can be mocked, so that we know exactly in, walking around in public who's responsible for whatever fucking damages we inevitably see from this. I want them to be known. I don't want them to be able to hide. I don't want them to be able to just fade into the background. I want them to be visible to all fucking people. So again, the only way I can think of doing that is stitching that goddamn MAGA hat to the top of their fucking skulls. I swear, these intros get longer and longer with these assholes by the fucking video. All right, yeah, here we go.
MAGA influencers jump like rats off a ship from the MAGA movement. And who's the most recent one this week? Yes, Megyn Kelly. If you didn't see, Megyn Kelly went on the Hodge Twins podcast and had some insanely nuclear things to say about old Diaper Don, claiming that he is a corrupt rapist. Wow. Didn't see that one coming, but is she sincere, or is she just blowing with the wind, as we would say, as obviously her own followers are becoming more and more anti-MAGA? We're also going to talk about the broader conversation of all these MAGA influencers, and there's a ton of them who have now left the MAGA movement, which is exactly what I told you guys about 6 months ago would start happening as we started nearing the midterms. So we're going to break all that down, see what we think about this transition phase of all these MAGA influencers fleeing the MAGA movement. We'll discuss if this is really how they feel or if they're just opportunists. So that's what we're going to talk about today's video. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Helps the channel. Follow us on Patreon. Grab some America First, America Only merch. Okay, let's jump into it. First thing we're going to do is watch these recent clips from Megyn on the, again, Hodge Twins podcast and see what we think. Now, this one actually is wild. She tells a story here that I actually didn't even know about. I think a lot of you probably may have heard this before, but yeah, this was actually kind of shocking to me. Let's take a watch.
And again, Megyn Kelly is telling on herself at every aspect of this. She's telling on herself for having supported this in the first place, and now coming out with the information that she had all along about how this guy treated his past wives, you know, the alleged sexual assaults against his wives. She's coming out with all this information now, but it never stopped her from supporting this asshole for all of these years. So again, no credit, no flowers, no empathy, no compassion for this bitch, for now all of a sudden being like, well, we knew all of this all along, but, you know, I'm just saying it now in 2026 as opposed to, you know, in 2016, which would have fucking, you know, at least done something to get this out there, to get people to be like, well, maybe we shouldn't have this fucking guy as president here as Republicans, you know, but, you know, I digress because we're well removed from that situation. But here she is again, telling on herself for the information that she's always known about Donald Trump.
A glass house. I mean, Trump has cheated on every wife he's had. He met Marla Maples while he was still married to the mother of his children, Ivana.
Right.
It was all over the New York papers. I'm from New York, upstate New York, but I was in New York at the.
She's from New York. She knew all of this. This is all widely reported. Everybody knew this, that he was a scumbag, that he was a piece of shit, that he was a womanizer, a sexual assaulter, right? Everybody knew that, but, you know, we voted for him anyway, and I didn't really call this out in 2015 or 2016 as I should have, and I still told the party line up until this fucking point, and I still do, because I said I'd vote for a Republican even if they dropped the nuclear bomb before I'd vote for a Democrat, and I'm paraphrasing to some extent there. And she's also talking about how I believe it was 13 to 14-year-old girls aren't really underage. That's not really a pedophile if a guy's going after somebody that age, right? When she defended Jeffrey Epstein and came out with all those fucking sick clips that made their way around social media. But here she is just saying, yeah, I lived in New York. I knew about all this shit. Did I support him still? Abso-fucking-lutely. Like, what a sick, twisted bitch you have to be for that to happen, right?
All went down the city. And he was like being touted, like he was proud of the affair. It was all over the papers. So, and by the way, Ivana, his first wife, accused him of raping her, that she alleged in her first book that he was so angry over the hair transplant he got that she made him get. It was so painful that he raped her. And she later retracted that when he ran for president, but that stood on the books for some time.
Wow. Okay. So actually a lot to unpack here with what Megyn just talked about. And I actually didn't know that story. Apparently it was deleted and retracted out of her book. And maybe you guys have heard that story before, that apparently he Ard his own wife after a botched hair transplant. Okay, that's insane. But is it shocking?
And they're bleeping out where she says raped there. So talking about the story that was in her book, but later retracted out of the book, apparently, about him being so furious about a hair transplant that was so painful. He came back and went on to sexually assault his then wife.
No,
something that Megyn Kelly knew. It was in the book. She knew. It was widely reported in newspapers in New York City, but still went on to not only vote for this guy, but continuously defend him for 10 years plus after that.
I mean, Donald Trump has been accused of sexual assault how many times? Oh, that's right. You can just type it in ChatGPT real quick and it'll tell you 28 times. Okay.
At least 28 women have publicly accused Trump of some form of sexual misconduct, including sexual assault, groping, forced kissing, harassment, related claims. Counters vary. Olders list 18 to 25, while newer reports include additional accusers. Trump has denied the allegations legally. One major case in 2023, a civil jury found Trump liable for sexual abuse and defamation against E. Jean Carroll, but not liable for rape under New York's legal definition. I'm not sure if that's true either, right? Didn't the judge come out and say rhetorically, right, it was the it was the same thing under the way that the law was written? Again, correct me if I'm wrong in the chat there, but I do remember to a certain extent the judge coming out and saying you're not wrong by calling it rape either, just by the definitional use. But like I said, the 28 women here that have publicly accused Trump should be a clear indication to Megyn Kelly that she was on the wrong side of history and continues to be. But I digress.
So Donald Trump being a rapist, duh, we all know that. That's no secret. But the bigger thing here is Megyn Kelly. You've known about this for 10 years, and you decided to still continue to support him for 10
sure
years.
did.
I mean, let's not forget, this is very, very recent that Megyn Kelly has
And again,
started to-
pair that with the sexual assault allegations when Megyn Kelly was at Fox. The lawsuits that stem from that, and her, again, consistent supporting of those same people, not only the same media figures, the same media space, the same channels, but the same conglomerate of assholes and conservative pieces of shit that was responsible for that period in her life. She's continuously supported. So it's not like something that, is strange or is like, out of the realm of possibility or against the norms as far as Megyn Kelly's disgustingness is concerned. It's pretty in line.
Criticizing Trump. I mean, let's not forget, she's been one of his biggest advocates and cheerleaders this entire time. So it begs the question, Megyn, you just openly supported this dude even though you knew that he was a corrupt rapist the entire time. That is not a good look for you. But is it surprising? Well, not really for Megyn. At least she wasn't 8, Kelly. I mean, this was her just 2 months ago defending Donald Trump.
This is the clip. This is the clip I was talking about where she's basically defending Jeffrey Epstein to a certain extent about how we could throw around the word pedophile. And I'll let you listen, but obviously I'm sure a lot of you guys remember about this disgusting clip as well.
And the Big E files?
Yes, or Epstein. I've said this before, but just as a reminder, I do know somebody very, very close to this case who is in a position to know virtually everything. Not everything, but virtually everything. And this person has told me from the start, years and years ago, that Jeffrey Epstein, in this person's view, was not a pedophile. This is this person's view, who was there for a lot of this, but that he was into the barely legal type. Like he liked 15-year-old girls. And I realize this is disgusting. I'm definitely not trying to make an excuse. I'm just giving you facts.
To have the fucking awareness to recognize right as you say it how disgusting it sounds, but to still continue on with that line of argument, that theory that she's coming out with here is fucking wild. Is wild, right? And the only difference between a 15-year-old and a 5-year-old is 10 fucking years, Megyn, okay? Doesn't matter. Underage is underage is underage. A pedophile is a pedophile is a fucking pedophile. So I don't give a shit what fucking friend you were talking about. I think you should have had some fucking common sense to not, even if a friend did say that, bring it up on your show, because you automatically and immediately recognized how fucking foolish and disgusting you sound even saying that. Right. But again, you went on to do it, regardless.
That he wasn't into 8-year-olds, but he liked the very young teen types.
So, of course, we all remember that when Megyn Kelly said that 14 was barely legal. Absolutely disgusting, including the fact that she's got a 14 or 15-year-old daughter. Absolutely wild work of something to say. But again, she was defending Donald Trump for being a pedophile. And then also keep in mind, Big E was most certainly into, based off of the files, girls much younger than 8 years old as well. So pretty gross, Megyn. So again, is Megyn all of a sudden just found her conscience out of nowhere, or does it have something more to do with her being a fence sitter and just knows which way her audience?
I'm going to skip ahead a little bit here where he goes after some of these other talking heads and podcasters. I think he's got a clip here where he goes after Joe Rogan a little bit. Let's see what he gets into here.
Not sure if they're actually anti-MAGA or if they're just opportunists in the moment. So let's take a look at some of these clips.
Play it. Please play it. This is awkward. Play it. Thank you.
Doing a lot of stock purchases.
Yeah, he's made a fortune. He's made a fortune in this. They made a settlement with the IRS. I think that's why a lot of it came out recently. But he can't be charged with anything. Or the latest thing is that he and his kids and his company cannot be audited.
Oh, that's cool.
That is cool. That's my settlement.
What was the settlement? What was the?
All right, so
yeah, why don't we just sit here and cackle Joe Rogan's dumb, bald, demented ass, sitting there cackling about the outright fraud and corruption that we're seeing here now. Again, as he stand behind Donald Trump, you couldn't see him apparently because the chair was so high that it was kind of blocking completely Joe Rogan out because of how short he is. But you can recall and pull up that clip online of recently Joe Rogan standing behind Donald Trump in the Oval Office. But they're cackling at just the outright blatant corruption that he's directly responsible for us getting here in the second Trump term. But I digress as far as that's concerned. I appreciate you guys joining. What's up, Nicholas? What's going on, brother? What's up, Bob Vruma? What's up, Five Celts? How are you? What's going on, Alyosha? What's up, Alan? What's up, Vincent? What's up, V Sawyer? JD? What's up, Deb? Appreciate you guys. What's up, Tiff? As always. What's up, Oliver? What's up, Jim? Wes? What's up, Miss Kitty? How are you? Bicycle Mike, what's going on, my brother? What's up, Frank? All right, so let's see if we can just kind of finish out a couple more minutes of this that we dove into earlier on today. We didn't get to finish all of this out, but I just wanted to dive into just a couple more minutes of this, if I may. This is, again, The Rest is Politics, basically describing and debating and reacting to the fact that Donald Trump may, in fact, be the most corrupt leader, the most corrupt president in history. And again, notice that I didn't say United States history, like we're talking about history, as it pertains to all leaders, strongmen, dictators, autocrats that have stolen off the backs of their own people, that have used their proximity to power or power in general to enrich themselves, right? We've talked about some people that have stolen 20 to 40 billion. We still get some considerable amount of time left if, in fact, Donald Trump's ticker keeps ticking for him to, again, pad those stats for the amount of billions he's been able to enrich himself, again, off the backs of these scams and off the backs directly of the United States taxpayer. So, again, this is a real debate that's taking place with people outside of this country on whether or not this is the most corrupt president in history. So again, if you want to watch the first half of this video, this clip that we were watching earlier, you can go back and check out the 1 o'clock show today to check out the first half. We'll just dive into, again, just a few more minutes of this before we get into some Ukraine coverage, and then I'll get you guys out of here for the night. So I appreciate you guys. Again, this is The Rest is Politics, talking about Donald Trump being the most corrupt president in history. That's right, in history.
Now, the reason why we're talking about this, the reason why this question was being asked and is being asked in the American debate as well, whether he is the most corrupt president ever, is because of this very live debate about this slush fund issue. So Trump, who loves a frivolous lawsuit as a sort of source of funds, he sues the IRS, the kind of tax man, for allegedly leaking his tax returns, or lack of tax in his case. So this is a case of Trump suing his own government. He's got two sets of lawyers. He's got Trump lawyers on this side and Trump lawyers on this side. And the government lawyers, they sent a 25-page memo to the Department of Justice explaining that this lawsuit is never going to stand up in court and it would lose. And then they decided to settle for the historically significant sum of, when was the United States founded, Rory?
1776. It's the name of one of Trump's children's hedge fund.
Correct. So they settle for $1.776 billion to pay to alleged victims of Biden justice weaponization, such as the January the 6th rioters. The fund to be overseen by a 5-person commission appointed by Trump and his attorney general, his former personal defense lawyer, Todd Blanche, operating with no oversight, not much transparency, not yet defined standards. And here's two really interesting things. Donald Trump, as the president, can fire any of the 5 at any time that he chooses, and the money has to be spent by the end of this term. Now, even some Republicans are saying this is a bit too much.
Well, let's. I mean, there's so many extraordinary things. There's that, and there's also the suggestion that, as part of the deal, the IRS has said that they are not going to pursue any of their existing audits against the Trump family.
It's not a suggestion.
They've stated it. They've stated it. Yeah,
it's a statement by Todd Blanche, and this will be forever.
There's a bit of debate about the forever, but it certainly seems as though it's forever for a lot of them, because anything they've started, they can't continue.
Yeah,
and that's most of the investigations. Just to remind people of the bigger picture here. So Trump's corruption is partly about flooding the zone. There's so much of it going on that one can barely keep up. I mean, as usual with Trump.
And again, I don't know if he's aware of, Steve Bannon and the Steve Bannon effect and what Steve Bannon said about just kind of flooding the zone with bullshit, right? Just put so much out there that, like we explained this morning, that people just inevitably can't defend against it all, whether it's, fraud, whether it's corruption, whether it's bad policy, whether it's stripping people of rights. Like, inevitably, some of it will get through. They may be able to block some of it. They may be able to block some of the policy, block some of the corruption, some of the fraud. But inevitably, if we do enough of it, well, enough of it will get through. We'll be able to enrich ourselves to an extent that, it won't even really matter at the stuff that they were able to stop. Right. So that's what we've seen here. And that's what we continue to see with Donald Trump with the corruption. Just throw so much of it at the people that it's impossible for everybody to call all of it out, to fight all of it, to mitigate against all of it. Whether it's, again, we've talked about 1,000 times, the perfumes, the colognes, the NFTs, the fucking crypto scams, the cell phones, the gold coins, the fucking Trump, what is it? The gold card that he was trying to sell. The list is just fucking endless of the ongoing scams. The $10 billion lawsuit against his own government, in which the IRS just found it really in a fortunate position to throw $2 billion at Donald Trump, even though he dropped his lawsuit that would have gone nowhere, as was just detailed in this clip, right? But like it's I don't know, the entirety of this fucking thing is like I continue to say, we're just not pissed off enough. We're not angry enough in this country. We're not reacting enough in this country, and we just continue to say, kick me in the nuts again and walk all over me because I'm either too scared or too unwilling for change, or too unwilling for sacrifice in order to get out there and fight for some change. Really,
any single one of these things would have been enough to lead to the resignation of a leader in any other country, and they would have a net popularity rating terrible, and they would have been forced out by their own cabinet and Congress, any one of them. But there are, I would say, I'm just trying to count through them. I got up into 20, 30, 40, 50 examples before I gave up. But just remind people quickly, there's the basic protection racket, which he runs against other countries. So that's essentially signaling that because he's the US president and he gets to control whether or not you have US bases or US missiles to protect you. So that'd be relevant, for example, for a Gulf state. Is America going to protect you against Iran or not? Your control over tariffs, are you going to hit Vietnam or Japan or Switzerland with 40% tariffs? Are you going to launch legal prosecutions against the president of the country, be it Venezuela, Colombia? Are you going to disable somebody's access to Google and Microsoft, which is what he did with the president of the International Criminal Court? So incredible range of different things that he as the US president can do to other people. So people begin paying protection money. And it's a really interesting type of protection money because it's not, this again is one of the reasons why it's a new form of corruption. And why it gets around the U.S. courts. The U.S. courts in a terrible...
a great example is the money funded into his ballroom, right? The companies that were originally associated with the original funding for the ballroom, people that are originally associated with funding for his campaigns, whether it be Elon Musk or the rest of these assholes that, again, footed, millions and millions of dollars towards his campaign to get something in return if he inevitably won the election. It's pretty, like I said, it's remarkable that you hear such kind of clarity. And you can hear it being talked about in such a concise way by people that aren't even part of this country, aren't even part of this, aren't even American citizens themselves. But it's very clear to everybody else around the world exactly what's taking place and how, on what level it's taking place at. That, it's like I said, it's refreshing to hear other people just call it out so, so blatantly and so, so directly.
Terrible recent ruling determined that you needed to find a specific gift and proves the specific official act created to that gift. And this has reduced the number of prosecutions against corrupt politicians in the US by a huge amount. Right? This is a case called McDonald. So Trump, on the basis that he gets, famously, a plane worth $400 million from Qatar, a UAE
isn't that crazy? How much do we forget? Not forget, but how much gets kind of, pushed into the fucking background with all of the corruption? How long ago was it we're talking about this $400 million Qatari jet just handed over to Donald Trump, the corruption beyond, behind that? When's the last time you heard that brought up? Because of all the ongoing corruption and all of the other pieces of evidence of corruption that have happened since then. You know what I mean? That's what, like, the flooding the zone aspect, the Steve Bannon aspect of just throw as much out there as humanly possible. That's what that means, to the point where obviously it's not forgotten, but it's definitely not talked about as much or mentioned, as much or enough, when we're kind of listing the acts of corruption that he's responsible for, because they're so numerous at this point.
Very close to the UAE government invests $2 billion in crypto associated with Trump. And it appears in return then gets permits to get US chips, the best NVIDIA chips in the world.
A clear example of a quid pro quo. That's what it is. You scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. You throw money into my crypto, you throw money into, my untraceable assets here, and we'll make sure that you get some, peace deal, you get some, weapons package, aid package, you get some access or rights to build a factory in the United States, whatever it may be that Donald Trump's offering. It's pretty clear as to how he's getting enriched from that, and how, different nations and bad actors around the world are utilizing that route to, again, get their wish list done, or to get on the better half or the better side, to get better, return out of their relationship with the United States or Donald Trump in particular.
You have your whole story around the Board of Peace, where you're paying $1 billion for membership.
And like I said, they go on for quite some time. We've only gotten through about 11 and a half minutes of this. It's actually about an hour long. So you can really tell how much, crime, fraud, and corruption they're having to kind of detail and sift through. But again, we won't subject you to the entirety of that. I'll throw why don't I do this? I'll throw the link in the chat for you guys, just in case anybody wants to check this out yourselves or go watch the rest of that. Throw that right in there, right there in the chat there. So, all right, there you go. There's the link for that if you guys want to check that out. Again, that is The Rest is Politics, talking about Donald Trump's ongoing and blatant corruption. What do you say here? We'll get into kind of the last half of the show, the last bit of the show where we're giving some updates on the Ukraine front, some frontline updates, some updates about some stories that we've been talking about recently. I wanted to start off with this if I could. This is something that I ran across on Twitter, something that we've been talking about over the last few days, something that was, heavily reacted upon by Russia and Vladimir Putin in particular. We talked about all the red flags and all the discrepancies and all the things that kind of make you, second guess what the Russians are saying. I mean, it's probably a good, a good plan of attack, no matter what, is to second guess anything the Russians are saying. But this is put out there by Vatnik Soup, right? And this is detailing the Starobilsk strike in Luhansk that the Russians said that the Ukrainians struck a dormitory. Well, again, this is just some new information, some new insights coming in from that. It says, in today's Vatnik Soup, we'll introduce Russian propaganda operations around military targets like Starobilsk, right? It says, for over a decade, the Kremlin has used similar strategies combining crisis actors, quote, independent journalists, and fabricated evidence. It goes on here in the thread to say, first, we'll go back to 2014. This explains the beginning here where Russia funded separatist groups and sent its mercenaries into Donbass, which led to the creation of two puppet states, Donetsk and Luhansk, governed by Russian propagandists and soldiers like Igor Girkin, as seen here. Just kind of giving you a broad general overview. This goes on to say here, the fake genocide was touted as one of the main reasons for Russia's war during the early stages of the full-scale invasion, and claim was made by Putin himself before his mutiny. The Wagner boss, Evgeny Prigozhin, said that this was all fabricated bullshit. Gerasimov, Shoigu. Sorry, I'm going to have to do that every time we bring up Prigozhin nowadays. But this goes on here to say that Prigozhin's disgruntled troll farm employees later reinforced his claim, confirming that the victims of the quote-unquote genocide were actually paid actors. Russians even erected statues to commemorate the falsified event in a war that they themselves started. It goes on here to talk about on 22 May 2026, Ukrainians struck military drone-related targets in Starobilsk. And this says it's in eastern Ukraine, of course. The area has been under temporary Russian occupation since 2022, and many of its colleges have been repurposed as military academies to train soldiers for the meat grinder, which is, again, another thing that was not detailed by the Russians and gives just kind of another option on the list of what may have taken place here. Right, if the Ukrainians had intelligence that these colleges were no longer being utilized as educational colleges, but as like war training facilities, then I would say that kind of justifies them as justifiable military targets, which is not what you're hearing. But it goes on here to talk about, the propaganda usage from the Russians. It says Ukrainians struck a dormitory that housed military personnel, which was now evident from the school's Telegram channel. Several videos also show how the college, in quotes, was used for training drone operators, right? And it goes on here to show some pictures, allegedly or apparently from the school, with some more reporting from Telegram here showing a Russian showing off a drone. And then it says here, 7 of 13 says, yet it didn't take the Kremlin long to take advantage of the fog of war. Their first false claim was that, quote, all 21 killed were 14 to 17-year-old children, even though all of the victims were of legal age and most likely had military backgrounds. And then it goes on to show here that these people sitting here holding up these pictures, apparently they're just nobodies. Apparently these are people that had absolutely nothing to do with the school. They're just, in a lot of cases, just random pictures of Russians, and they're trying to get it, trying to get everybody to believe that they were victims in this case. This goes on to say here, NAFO fella also found out that several photos of the victims were recycled from other sources. This is nothing new. For example, they once used a photo of a famous gay porn star, Billy Harrington, on one of their memorial plaques. This goes on to show here, I believe this is where you can see the finger pointing of the memorial made to the people that were killed in Ukrainian strikes. And apparently they decided to just throw some random generated photos on the internet up there. And apparently they used one here of a porn star, Billy Harrington. But again, this goes on to detail how they've done this before, because this says, then came the, quote, international journalist. One of them was, of course, Che Baus. We've talked about his tweets on on Twitter before. He's an RT employee, one of the most prominent English-speaking propagandists in Russia. Others play similar roles for Kremlin, and the Kremlin, and some of them were actual crisis actors. Now, here's a pretty weird story that you see here. Basically, anytime that the Russians want to get some propaganda out there, anytime they want to use some sort of Ukrainian strike to their benefit, seems like they utilize or pay the same motherfucker. How is this guy at all of these different locations, right? How is this guy somehow just involved in all of these different strikes, happens to be there to be given, different news reports and different accounts of what took place in all of these different places? Like, come on. At what point are we calling bullshit, right? At what point are we looking at and saying, okay, that looks a little bit fishy? It says, as is tradition, these stories were promoted by large pro-Kremlin accounts like Mario Naufal, while now showing videos from Russian state media outlet RIA Novosti. Many also falsely claimed that the massive missile strikes on Ukraine was in retaliation for this missile strike. It says, according to Russia's MFA, a spontaneous memorial was quickly erected for the victims. It is important to understand that none of this is spontaneous, but a well-planned strategy to score points through disinformation in the international arena. It says Russia also employs teenagers to build its war machine. A drone factory or unit is a legitimate military target, but when Russia hires 15-year-olds to build drones, it also creates an opportunity for propaganda once these facilities are hit by Ukraine. And this is what we were talking about with these pictures here. For years to come, we will see monuments and statues erected to these quote-unquote victims who in reality were soldiers from Russia's elite Rubicon drone military unit. This was a big loss for the Kremlin, and now they are trying to gain something from it. And again, I think that kind of gives some insight and some details as to not only the way in which the Russians try to utilize the propaganda, but kind of gives a little bit more insight and obviously throws more options on the table as to what may or may not have taken place in this Starobilsk strike in Luhansk. On that same plane, though, this is another way in which we continue to try to highlight and talk about the technological advancements, the drone advancements that the Ukrainians have been able to achieve in this fight. Here's kind of a really big advancement if we could see these being produced on a large scale as well. And again, that may already be in the works. I just may not be hip to the information. But this is posted by Richard Woodruff. And he says, when we started this drone factory, we were just two idiots trying to help Ukraine hit 1 million FPVs a year. He goes on to say, next thing you know, we're out here accidentally becoming the Oppenheimer of kamikaze drones. Ours are now fully unjammable, as in the Russians can jam all they want. Our babies just laugh and keep flying. They run on renewables. We're about to delete a lot of Russian logistics, like, sorry, bro, your supply truck just got yeeted into the next dimension. Levels of deleted. And again, here's just kind of a quick clip kind of showing and showcasing this specific drone and the technology on it that is supposed to be, as reported here, allegedly unjammable, which would be another clear advancement, another clear jump in the drone technology and the advancements we've seen time and time again from the Ukrainian side, and something that the Russians are going to have to contend with and definitely going to have to develop some sort of mitigatory defense against this, if any exist. I'm not sure. Obviously, not my area of expertise, but here's just a quick clip. I think it's got copyright music on it, so I'm going to have to turn it down, but just kind of gives you a quick look at this drone. Sorry, I got to turn that down. I'm not sure. That's probably copyright. It looks to be a 6 rotors. So a 6-rotor drone. Looks like it's got some sort of, I think that's a Starlink connection on the top of it. So again, doesn't seem to be fiber optic in any way. I don't see any fiber optic spooling. Again, that would be a huge benefit in a lot of ways too, as well, not having to deal with the very bulky, probably not easy to manufacture fiber optic cable that has been utilized in some of these, 5 kilometer, 10 kilometer, 15 kilometer, I think up to 50 or 60 kilometers, probably even more now since then, that they had the spooling of to be able to spool out the fiber optic drone behind, the fiber optic cable behind the drone. So again, if you can do away with that, not only is it, eliminating a very difficult and bulky, piece of the process that again adds to weight, point, adds to complication in getting the supplies to the front lines. Just another thing that they don't have to worry about getting to the front, but also the environmental aspects of this, not having the, the consistent use and throwing of, fiber optic cable all over these towns and villages, much like we've seen. We've seen some of them look like they're just fucking covered in massive spider webs. So again, to see that we're kind of hopefully getting away from that, and the drone technology is progressing to this point, is obviously going to be something not only the Russians are going to have to contend with, but obviously something that we're going to keep our eye on going on here in the future of this war. So, never surprises me, never ceases to amaze me, the level of ingenuity, the ability that the Ukrainians have on, again, progressing the drone technology, advancing this warfare, and kind of, again, taking what's going on the battlefield and saying, okay, how can we make this easier for ourselves? How can we mitigate against what the Russians are doing? Let's use our brightest minds to come up with a plan. And then they're great at not only coming up with the plan, but putting that plan into action, right? Whether that's wide-scale production of these drones, the wide-scale production of the ground robots that we've talked about so much, all of these aspects, all of these different, parts of the machine, they've been very consistent on their ability to get this stuff out there and to, again, manufacture different ways to get at the Russians and to make them pay a very dear price for their invasion of Ukraine. But let's see if we can dive onto this one, because this is everybody's favorite neighborhood Russian, Roman NFKRZ, as he's known here by his YouTube channel. And he is he's a Russian. He was born in Russia, grew up in Russia, no longer lives in Russia, made his, got his ass out of there at the right moment in time. But he's just speaking about something that kind of relates to Donald Trump's health decline we've seen, is something that we're similarly seeing here in Vladimir Putin. Again, old age, the longer that you stay in power, the more likely it's going to be that the people watch and witness your decline, right? So these autocrats, these dictators that love being in power for 10, 20, 30, 40 years, like, it's just, that's how time works. People are inevitably, if you get into power young and you stay in there until you're fucking 98 years old, people are going to notice a difference. They're going to see a decline, and it's going to become more apparent as you go on that, you're slowing down, you're not as quick. People are going to try to take advantage of that. So again, not the best position to be in as an autocrat, as a dictator. But again, like I said, this is everybody's favorite neighborhood Russian, giving us an idea of just how much of a joke Vladimir Putin has become. And again, we'll get into a couple minutes of this, and then we got one about some frontline updates from the battle plans exposed, and then I'll get you guys out of here for the evening. So, excuse me. I appreciate you guys being here. As always, hit that like button. Slava Ukraina, Heroyam Slava. As always, let's see what we can get into in this one. Remind you of anybody right off the bat? Like, does this remind you of Donald Trump slurping and slurring and fucking, the movements of his mouth right off the bat? Like, these two assholes couldn't be more directly connected if they wanted to be, even though there's, like, obviously huge differences and discrepancies between the two of them and the way they act and operate. But, when you boil it down to, the baseline, there's really not that much separating these two assholes.
Hurrah! 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 Hurrah!
What in the fuck was that? And again, that was so piss poorly done, even by Vladimir Putin, that it's making its way around Russia as far as a meme, as far as social media content is concerned. Like, he couldn't even get the words hurrah out. And we know how much of a thing it is for the Russian military to say hurrah, right? I mean, we see it all the time at their Victory Day parade. Anytime they got a bunch of them together, it's their chant, it's their moment to shine when they have to do the hurrah. And it seems to be a big fucking point of contention and something that Vladimir Putin just can't get quite right. Because he's had a moment, I remember he was doing some sort of concert before where he had a similar moment where he tried to say hurrah and it didn't really go well either. I'm not sure. I think Roman actually might have the clip in this video now that I think about it, but let's see how much we can get into here.
Right now, our good old friend Vladimir Putin is going through a generational aura loss. For those of you who are not 12 years old and who do not know this brain rot lingo, long story short, Vladimir Putin doesn't have it anymore. He's getting old and nobody at this point is taking him seriously. If you guys have followed what's going on in Russia through my channel, you probably know that Putin is not having the best time right now. The increase in censorship and internet shutdowns in Russia have caused Vladimir Putin's ratings to plummet down. Russians at this point are so unhappy with their lives that they're making content about it. And actually, even Instagram influencers and also Z influencers who previously supported Putin are now starting to call him out publicly. publicly. And also the recent embarrassment of the 9th of May victory parade, which had absolutely zero military equipment at it, for which Vladimir Putin basically had to ask permission from Trump and Zelensky. And also after the recent massive attack of Ukrainian drones on Moscow, Vladimir Putin is starting to look more and more weak and pathetic in the eyes of the Russian people and the world community. Well, what if I told you that Vladimir Putin is not only falling off when it comes to politics, but also when it comes to his physical and mental well-being? While at one point in his career when Vladimir Putin was young,
just
he was
look at
known
that
as a
difference,
sharp
right? We talked about earlier in the show the blatant and obvious difference between, Donald Trump in his first term, Donald Trump earlier on in his life, and what we're looking at now when he gets in front of a fucking camera. But look at Putin.
Well, at one point in his,
look at how much different he looks, right? I'm not sure exactly what year this was. Obviously, I would assume either early 2000s or late 90s. But you can see the difference in his facial features, just the whole 9 yards. The whole thing is different. But this is, like I said, this is what happens when you keep yourself in power for this long. That's the just the human change that takes place. But it's not a good look for dictators, and again, doesn't promote this aura of being a strong man, right?
career when Vladimir Putin was young, he was known as a sharp interlocutor and a very articulate and smart person who's also always demonstrated that he's in great health and loves doing sports. Well, now things have changed a lot because Vladimir Putin these days is stumbling his words and is saying nonsense more than ever. And physically, he sometimes acts very strange, which, in turn, the entirety of Russia makes fun of him for. So hey there people, it is your boy Roman, your favorite neighborhood Russian, and in this video, we're going to be doing a wellness check on Vladimir Putin and also talking about all the crazy brain farts and strange behaviors that show us that Vladimir Putin is no longer the strongest.
That's it right there. I think that was the clip right there that I was talking about. I forget what the event was. It was some, maybe something celebrating the war, a victory day. I forget what it was at this point, but I think that was the clip. Maybe he shows it.
In the vault. By the way, sponsors don't like political content that talks about Russia too much. So if you guys appreciate what we do on this channel, go over to the link down in the description and support us financially either through Buy Me a Coffee or becoming
Christ, is that why I'm having such trouble, right? Is that why? Is that maybe I should second that? Should I second that? Sponsors that we don't have whatsoever or even look to speak to at this point, they don't really typically like political content that talks about, Israel, Gaza, Russia, how Donald Trump's a pain in the ass and a demented dickhead. They typically don't like that stuff. So again, if you guys have some quarters kicking around between those couch cushions and you have a Venmo, there's a Venmo up in the corner. You can just send $1 or $2 over. That's all we ask for, people. Nothing substantial. Anything above and beyond that is totally up to you guys. If we feel we are, deserving of more than that, and it fits into your financial capabilities, then God bless you. Very much appreciate it. If not, do the free stuff. Liking, sharing, and subscribing doesn't cost you a dime. No content here. You have to come out of pocket to watch, and nothing hidden behind a paywall. Don't have to pay for the Substack. None of that stuff. Completely independent. All I ask for is, again, if you see some benefit, some value in the show, you kick in $1 either through the chat, the Venmo, head over to patreon.com, sign up for a YouTube membership, get a t-shirt from the merch site over at bostonbrian.com. Something along those lines to help the channel. Again, big thank you guys for getting us past 20,000 subscribers. Hopefully we're on our way to 25,000 subscribers and beyond. But like I continue to say, only with your help and your generosity can we get there. So back into the video.
A YouTube channel member. It helps us make more and better videos for you. Now look, I know that in the West, for a lot of people, Vladimir Putin still has a kind of an aura of a badass who's very sharp with his words and everything. And on YouTube, you always have these videos of Putin being badass compilations. And under these videos, you always have comments from Americans going, I wish we had a leader like Vladimir Putin. He's so strong and competent.
Definitely all MAGA Republicans leaving these comments. 1,000% MAGA Republicans leaving every single one of these comments.
And look, the only reason I think Westerners believe this is because they literally cannot speak Russian. Because Vladimir Putin's ability to speak is getting worse, and the entirety of Russia is making fun of it. For example, a few days ago, when meeting with a bunch of Russian soldiers in the Kremlin, Vladimir Putin did something very strange.
Все-таки сложнее всего тем ребятам, которые сейчас, вот сейчас, на поле боя. Вот сейчас. И давайте мы сделаем это так, как уже сделали. В их честь, в их поддержку. На счет 3. Громко так, чтобы они услышали. Троекратное ура. 3. Ура! Ура! Ура!
Gee, he sounds like he's having a fucking stroke. I mean, he can't get the word hoorah out. Like, I say "hurrah" better in Russian than he says "hurrah" in Russian. Like, he couldn't get the goddamn word out. And again, this is being noticed by people inside of Russia as well. I'll let that play one more time. I think that's gold. Listen to the "hurrah, hurrah, hurrah." Like, settle down, Chief.
Hurrah! Hurrah! Hurrah!
So this clip right now is going viral in Russia. Everybody's taking the piss out of it. Vladimir Putin basically tried to initiate a bit of a military chant from the soldiers that were present.
Translation, anybody that doesn't know what taking the piss means, that means they're just making fun of it. They're laughing at it. They're using it as a joke. That's what taking the piss means for all of my American listeners that may not be, cultured.
Events, and he said that we should honor the soldiers right now on the front line by saying "Ura" 3 times, right? And you've probably seen, Russian troops. It's like their war cry.
Hold on. More attacks just happened. Hold on. What are we looking at? Are we talking Iran? Sorry, I know. It's not really smart of me to pull a comment out of the chat randomly like that, but let's see if there's anything that we could see. Was anything just happened? Iran war live updates again. Conduct strikes in Iran as Trump expresses. Let me see this. Put this on your screen real quick. We'll go back into that, but I just want to see if there's anything we can dump in. U.S. officials said on Wednesday new attacks had been in self-defense. Were these the other ones, though? Get the fuck out of here with all these pop-ups. Bye. Get out of here. Attacks have been in self-defense and targeted attack drones and drone ground control stations. There were the latest attacks to threaten a fragile ceasefire. Is this more recent, or were these the other ones that we were talking about? Ships in the water near the port city of Bandar Abbas Iran earlier. See here. Here's the latest. American forces conducted what U.S. officials said on Wednesday were self-defense strikes. So again, must have been today in southern Iran for the second time in 3 days. The United States knocked down 4 one-way attack drones that the officials said Iran had launched over the Strait of Hormuz, threatening U.S. forces in the region and what commercial maritime traffic is going through the strait, and Iran has effectively blockaded. The military has then conducted airstrikes against a drone ground control station in the port city of Bandar Abbas before Iran could fire a 5th drone, said the U.S. official who spoke on the condition of anonymity to discuss operational matters. U.S. says it knocked down 4 attack drones. For the second time in 3 days, American forces conducted what U.S. officials are saying were self-defense strikes in southern Iran. So appreciate you guys bringing that to my attention, but looks like more of the same. Continued bombing, continued strikes, continued escalation, while also calling it a ceasefire. But civic justice, much appreciated for bringing that to my attention, my friend. Thank you. And to anybody else that was trying to bring that to my attention as well, much appreciated for you guys keeping me up to date, up to speed, and informed. As always. So let me throw this back on the screen. Where are we? I think it was this one right here. Here we go.
To go, "Ura!"
There you go. That's what I'm talking about. You guys, I'm sure you've all heard this a million times from the Victory Day parades, or if you haven't, this is what I'm referencing when it's typically a very boisterous, loud, and I don't know, in unison thing where they say "hoorah" very specifically. But again, Vladimir Putin not really capable of doing that anymore, it seems like.
And then when Vladimir Putin did it,
Hurrah! Hurrah! Hurrah!
he just sounds like he has no life left in him. Like, he genuinely sounds pathetic. And it's actually so funny because the Kremlin saw this as a massive aura loss moment, and they actually edited the video that they uploaded to their website.
So again, this is uploaded to a Russian website. What do you guys notice about this? Who are they not showing, and who do you not hear? Right? So they had to literally edit out Vladimir Putin entirely, not only him visually, but his fucking voice in the background of him saying "hoorah" or attempting to say "hoorah." They literally edited that out entirely. That's how fucking bad this was.
So yes, they straight up cut out his voice because it's too fucking embarrassing. They literally had to edit out Putin's voice because him screaming "Ura" was too pathetic. Incredible things are happening, guys. And the thing is, this is not the first time he's done this either. Like, having to say "Ura" for some reason breaks Vladimir Putin. In 2022, there was this massive government organized.
Yeah, this is it. This is what I'm talking about. This is what I was talking about. He can't say it here either.
On a red square, the point of which was basically to celebrate the annexation of territories of Ukraine, during which Vladimir Putin actually had a speech on the stage.
Предлагаю отсюда, с Красной площади, послать им сигнал нашей поддержки, уважения и преклонения перед их жертвенностью и перед их героизмом. Предлагаю сделать это громко, так, чтобы за 1000 километров они услышали голос Красной площади. Трехкратным «Ура!» Набрали воздуха и по моей команде на счет 3.
So he's stuttering all over his words. I know it's probably difficult to hear, you know, if you're not a Russian speaker. Not saying that I am, but you know, having dealt with Russian speakers, and you can tell when he's not consistently saying the words correctly, and when he's stuttering and stammering, which you know, again, he is here. But this is just so fucking cringeworthy the way that this goes through. Check this one out.
Раз, два, три. Ура! Ура!
It's just like fucking cringe as cringe gets right there, brother.
Why? Why is he like this, bro? Like, I really hope this translates well to you guys if you don't speak Russian, but like...
Набрали воздуха.
He's like...
See? See?
Ura, ura. It's like here you can truly see how small of a man Vladimir Putin really is. He doesn't have what it takes to be a real Russian soldier, you know? He's just a tiny little man who's like, ura. That's all he can do. And some of you guys can say, whatever, Roman, you're nitpicking. Okay, he cannot scream, but he can speak normally. Well, that's not exactly true, because I want to show you this, something that Vladimir Putin said in 2023, when he basically was talking about how the West was hoping that Russia is going to fall apart.
Зачем это нужно создавать себе проблемы в надежде на то, что мы рухнем? Но мы уже не рухнем. Не рухнем, уже все понятно. Все,
this is the one where everybody thought he was shit-faced, right? Everybody thinks that he sounds like he was drunk this entire time. Like, this is the one where I think he was swearing as well. Like, he threw in a couple fucking bliats, if I remember correctly in this one, but he's kind of sprawled out, sounded to be kind of slurring his words a little bit.
Нет, забрались в эту колею и по этой колее дальше шуруют.
Yeah, it is. Holy shit, let me get out of the way. Check this out. Listen to his last sentence there.
Нет,
right? Look at the end of the sentence. Look at the very end of the sentence. Sounds like he's trying to say bliat. You know what I mean? Russian swear. They've gotten themselves stuck in this rut, and now they're just plodding along in it. Bliat, and he goes to say. So this is like, kind of obviously out of character, I'll say, for Vladimir Putin to just like outright swearing or attempting to swear at least in one of his speeches. And again, another thing that went to, the speculation as whether or not he was drinking some vodka before this.
Эту колею и по этой колее дальше шуруют. Без всякого анализа происходящих событий.
Like, it doesn't translate the best, but he basically cannot speak properly anymore.
На то, что мы рухнем. Но мы уже не рухнем. Не рухнем.
He says, but we're not collapse anymore. So again, not even worded correctly in the Russian language.
Понятно.
So like, he wanted to say Russia is not going to fall apart. It's like a verb in Russian, ruchnem. But instead of saying ruchnem, he said ruchnum. So he had a brain fart, basically. And ruchnum just sounds like a funny made-up verb, which is describing something like kind of a clusterfuck or whatever. And it's funny because this actually...
And again, to such an extent that it's actually become a meme inside of Russia when they're, it's almost like FUBA. Fucked up beyond all recognition. Like, that's Russia's version of FUBA is that. So when they're describing in their, in their chat rooms on social media, anything that's fucked up, the Russian society that's fucked up, the Russian economy that's fucked up, they say ruknum, right? As far as that's concerned, because of the way Vladimir Putin mispronounced it, obviously making him the butt of the joke.
Become a meme in Russia. Like right now, on like Russian 4chan, Dvach, or like on Russian social media, a lot of people do use the word ruchnum to kind of describe the situation in Russia, saying, what Vladimir Putin has done is a complete ruchnum. It's like, yes, he's basically on the same level as Joe Biden at this point. Just an old fart does not make any sense, and who, young people are laughing at. I mean, all I had to do is Google ruchnum on YouTube, and I found this. This might be the only good use of AI like ever, bro.
And then he goes on here to the other chapters here talking about Putin's coughing. Remember that like coughing episode when they like mistakenly released the wrong version of his, what was it, the Women's Day, if I'm not mistaken. You guys remember this one?
Now, physically speaking, Vladimir Putin is also having a bunch of issues. For example, there was this video right here which was released during the 8th of March, the International Women's Day. And essentially, the Kremlin uploaded the wrong video file of the address of Putin to the women for the International Women's Day.
С праздником, с Международным женским днем. Да, вы знаете, давайте-ка я еще раз скажу, потому что перешел, да? Да, чуть не закашлялся. Много говорил сейчас. Нет.
Get it together, bro. Jeez.
Come on, bro. Like, how long are you gonna keep coughing for? That's fucking insane. I mean, it's actually already been a meme in Russia for a few years as well. That Vladimir Putin's most famous quotes, you know, in his entire political career is Блин, сейчас как Путин сделал. Alright, anyway, okay. Because he does this all the time, like actually an unimaginable amount of times. Unless you're Russian, you watch too much his addresses and his speeches, you wouldn't know how much he does this bullshit. And the comments are fucking hilarious here as well. Like people are saying, the people's love for him probably got stuck in his throat. Give him some water with Novichok to drink. And again, just like the rest, that's only kind of the tip of the iceberg because there's been other like, you know.
Right, like I said, we won't have time to get into it, but he does go on here to talk about the concerns over Putin's health. You know, obviously this like the claw hand that he's got going on here, the veins that are obviously visible. There's obviously more aspects going on. There was this one here. We remember, I'm sure you'll recall, where Vladimir Putin's meeting with Shoigu, and he basically sat for about 15 minutes just gripping the table in a very odd manner. The way he sat through this interview, through this, this talk here with Shoigu that people were referencing and bringing up. We've seen the reports of him kind of defecating on himself. We've seen him kind of slurring his speech. Obviously, the difficulty in saying "hoorah." There's been a lot of things kind of speculated on as far as Putin's health is concerned. A lot more than even which we've brought up here. But not being able to remember names. There was a bunch of them here that he continues to go over. But before I run out of time, I do want to go over what's been taking place on the front lines, if you'll allow me. This is the most recent video here from the Battle Plans Exposed. It says Putin's crown jewel turning into a catastrophe. And I believe this is speaking again a little bit more about the Zaporizhia front and the Mariupol to Melitopol into Crimea highway, if I'm not mistaken. If not, I think it just gives us a broad general look at some of the, the movements on the front lines to give us an update. So I appreciate you guys, as always, sticking with me. Make sure you hit that like button. Thank you guys so goddamn much to everybody that's sending in a Venmo and helping keeping this channel running. And, hopefully at some point making me able to set up a life. That would be fantastic at some point. You know what I mean? But thank you guys again. Big shout out, big salute to all you guys, the mods first and foremost, for keeping that chat a safe place and sticking with me in being here as long as you have. I really do appreciate you guys. That's everybody on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, Instagram, Substack, wherever you're watching, wherever you're helping, however you're helping this channel. Much love, much respect, and I very much appreciate you. Again, this is Battle Plans Exposed. A couple minutes of this, I'll get you guys out of here. Just a little bit of some frontline updates.
Putin really understand what's going on in the front line. They actually suffered a net loss of territory across the entire Ukrainian theater for the first time since August 2024. Where the Russians had the initiative for much of the last year, the Ukrainians now have the initiative and are dictating the pace. As Zelensky launches the largest attack on Moscow since the beginning of the war, and reports of starving Russian troops attacking their own comrades for food, there are major updates from the front line in Ukraine. I'm Philip Ingram, and this is Battle Plans Exposed. For the first time, more than 1,000 Ukrainian drones were shot down by Russian air defenses. Vladimir Putin recently claimed his invasion is coming to an end. That may well be true, but not in the way he thinks. Intelligence signals show we have reached a major turning point. New Ukrainian jet-powered drones are hitting targets deep inside Russian territory, and even pro-Kremlin military bloggers admit Kyiv now has total drone superiority.
I think that's a pretty consistent thing that I'm hearing now is people, more and more people that are, looking at this fight, looking at this war, that research it, that to go over the ins and outs and the daily movements of what's taking place, recognizing the willingness of the Russian side, the Russian mil bloggers, the Russian, military bloggers that are out there reporting on this, and their willingness to talk about the difficulties faced by the Russian military, the blatant fucking miscalculations and kind of misuse of the military by the command structure and leadership. More and more of that is being talked about, and more people starting to recognize that. And again, having to talk about your own military shooting your own military in hopes to steal their own food is never a good look. Not really giving us a clear picture as for like the victorious military, right? You know, when they're having to kind of eat their own people, eat their own people's food. Never a good look for a military.
Russian commanders are calling up citizens just to fill holes.
Whoa, where'd you go?
Holes in their meat wave infantry. On the ground, Ukrainian forces have captured the key town of Stepanohirsk in a successful mechanized assault, and to the south, occupied Crimea is looking completely exposed. We look at all of this, plus the new Ukrainian weapon systems coming online. But first, as ever, let's take a look at what's been happening on the front lines. We'll begin with this attack in Crimea. What you are seeing is the next step in unmanned warfare. This is an FP2 strike drone built by Firepoint, but it is no longer just a kamikaze platform. Look at the updated targeting display. Ukrainian engineers have fitted these drones with custom launch rails carrying unguided air-to-ground rockets. Watch the reticle align. There goes the salvo. It fires them directly into a strategic protected communications node belonging to Russia's Black Sea Fleet. This was the first time we have seen onboard footage of a drone operating like a mini attack helicopter. It completely flattens the radio tower before the drone even moves in to detonate its
Again,
own main.
removing the kamikaze aspect, of course, just the overall, the most blatant benefit that you get from that is not having to produce as many of them, because obviously they're not being destroyed every single time. Again, if these are able to loiter in a specific area, shoot their rockets and return back to base to be, you know, refitted, rearmed with more rockets to be sent up again. Clearly, that's an advantage to the Ukrainian military to not have to just, you know, put up one drone, lose one drone, have to get another drone to replace that. The more and more they can utilize these drones, the more and more they can keep them in rotation. And of course, they'll be lost to enemy fire, you know, malfunctions, whatever that is, and will have to be replaced. But the less of those that have to be replaced, and the more we can get these drones online, again, the more benefit the Ukrainian military will see from that, no doubt.
Payload. Now let's look at the futility of Russian tactics against Ukrainian drone warfare. This footage comes from the Tsuny Oblast up in the northeastern part of Ukraine, near the village of Ryazany. Look at this column on the road. Look how exposed they are. There are 7 Russian assault quad bikes attempting a fast, highly mobile raid. Because Russian forces have lost so many armored vehicles, commanders are increasingly relying on unarmored open-air quad bikes and motorbikes to rush Ukrainian positions. Ukrainian 119th Territorial Defense Brigade spots them early using reconnaissance drones and instantly deploys a swarm of FPV strike platforms. Watch the feed switch to the drone's perspective as it closes the gap. We can't show you all of the footage.
No, it looks like it got really hot really quick for a lot of those Russians. Let's just say they were smoking carelessly. They must have had some flammable garb on. I don't know, maybe they were just soaked in petrol and decided to light up a really nasty Russian cigarette, but it definitely looked like it had some, let's just say, some detrimental effects as far as their health was concerned for those Russians that thought they were just in broad daylight going to be able to ride ATVs into this battlefield without the Ukrainians spotting them through their drone activity, which is asinine. But again, the tactics that we've seen of the Russians trying to utilize smaller and smaller groups, you know, less and less armored personnel carriers, less and less tank, and more kind of, you know, motorbikes, scooters, ATVs, you know, open back trucks for, you know, quicker exfil, you know, or entry into the battlefield itself. But, you know, it doesn't seem to be really having the impact or effect. Or again, the Ukrainians are outworking and outmaneuvering the Russians, and again countering what they're doing to change their tactics with change in tactics with their own drone warfare. And it looks like the Ukrainians again having some great success in that attack there.
But there is the direct hit. The explosion triggers a secondary blast, completely destroying the column. The clip shows the madness of using unprotected light transport against an adversary with complete drone superiority.
Insane.
We'll have a look at how Ukraine uses armored vehicles for assaults properly later in this episode. And the reality is all of those all-terrain vehicles or quad bikes were the lucky ones to even find use. Here we have a prime example of how Ukraine is actively strangling Russia's ability to bring its forces together for an assault even before they get to the start line. This footage comes from the 118th Territorial Defense Brigade. Look at the camera feed from this heavy multi-rotor drone as it navigates directly inside a massive abandoned warehouse. Intelligence.
And you can tell how big the drone is too, you know, from the rotor wash that it's kicking up, the dust that it's kicking up on the ground. I mean, this isn't one of those little FPV drones. This is this is one of those pretty substantial drones that, again, I was lucky enough to see demonstrated and how capable, fast, and, you know, maneuverable these things are. So you can, quite clearly see that this is being utilized, going after a Russian target, Russian armored vehicle here underneath cover before it even gets to, get on the road, get on the battlefield here. I'm assuming this one's not going to be mobile, active much longer.
I spotted signals of heavy armor moving into this specific shelter. And look closely as the video switches to the thermal view. There they are, hidden in the structures, 3 Russian BMP infantry fighting vehicles, fully loaded and prepared to move out for a mechanized assault. The rear doors of them are the fuel tanks, which you can see slightly warmer to the rest of it. Watch the final drone strike. The first vehicle, the resulting fire spreads rapidly across the warehouse, cooking off the remaining 2 BMPs parked right next to it. By using precision drones to breach the hangar door, a single unit completely derailed an entire Russian assault before it could even get underway. Next up, we have some fresh Ukrainian innovation. It continues, and we see this coming into use. We'll explain more on these specific systems later in the episode, but take a look at this. This footage captured by residents shows a Ukrainian Bars cruise missile flying low over the Moscow region. It was filmed during a massive coordinated attack on the Russian capital and its surrounding areas. Notice how low it stays to the ground, using the terrain and buildings to mask its signature from air defense radars. This is a clear indicator that Kyiv's deep strike program is expanding rapidly, bringing the material cost of this war right to the doorstep of the Russian elite.
I mean, what is that? I don't even know. I lost count at this point. The third, the fourth advancement that we've seen, that we've heard of, new technology being newly utilized by the Ukrainians just in the reporting that we've done in this one podcast. I mean, it just goes to show you how innovative they are, how much this is changing, how rapidly this is changing, how rapidly the technology is advancing, and again, how well utilized and how well established Ukrainians are in this field already. We've talked about the unjammable drones, the new weapons platforms here that we're talking about being utilized or caught on camera for the first time. The Ukrainian drones that have the ability to, again, fire rockets or, continuously be resupplied with the rockets and aren't just kamikaze drones being, expended one for one. I mean, those are at least some of the advancements that we've talked about just in this podcast here, which again gives you a clear indication how rapidly this is progressing and how on the forefront of those changes the Ukrainian military really is.
And finally, a major milestone for Ukraine's domestic defense manufacturing. For the first time in this conflict, Kyiv has developed its own indigenous guided aerial glide bomb known as a KAB or CAB.
And again, just for the sake of time, I know we're over already. I'm going to skip forward here to just a couple of the frontline updates, right? I think there's this one here near Stepnorisk that he's speaking about as well. I think that's this one here.
So let's turn to the ground situation on the Zaporizhia front. This is where Ukrainian forces have launched a decisive mechanized push to reclaim the tactical initiative. The Zaporizhia region is the vital land bridge connecting mainland Russia through down into occupied Crimea. For years, it has been heavily fortified, and the Russians have used it as this vital...
We've talked time and time again, chat, about how vital this area is. I mean, not least of which is obviously the Russian control over the Zaporizhia nuclear power plant and how we do not want them to be able to further insulate their control over that. We do not want the Russians to be able to utilize the Sea of Azov to sneak their way into the city center or the greater general area of Zaporizhia itself. Obviously, clearly the Ukrainians' ability to hit the Melitopol to Mariupol highway into Crimea is having, impacts, is having effects on their ability to resupply and get things into Crimea, and and obviously in places in between those locations as well. So, you can see how important this area is.
Land bridge to get into Crimea, backing what is coming across the Kerch Bridge and through the bridge between the Sea of Azov and the Black Sea, reinforcing their capabilities inside Crimea. The Ukrainians have not been able to interdict the Russian supply routes until now. But in the past few weeks...
We talked about how difficult it would be to basically cut off supply lines. It's obviously the attempt, it's the goal to make it as difficult as humanly possible for the opposing military to resupply its forces on the front. And there's only probably very limited geographical areas and spots in which you'd be able to totally cut off. This may be one of the more likely ones. Chat wants to see the bottom of the map. Let's see here. What was I showing before? What bottom of the map? Am I in the way? Is that what you're saying? because you guys can see the whole map on there. But here's the I'll get out of the way. I'll play that one again in case you guys missed a little bit.
They
of that.
interdict the Russian supply routes until now. But in the past few weeks, the tectonic plates of this battlefield have started to shift. Following a successful operation that halted the latest Russian offensive, the Ukrainian command has moved swiftly into the next phase of its campaign.
Yeah, my apologies if you guys couldn't see that. That's my bad. But just to finish off what I was saying there, I would suspect that if there was any area in which the Ukrainians did have the ability, or at least percentage-wise, the highest percentage to be able to do a very, very substantial amount of damage to their ability to resupply, it would be obviously the destruction of the Kerch Bridge, and then obviously the continued hammering away of that Mariupol to Melitopol into Crimea highway. I believe it's, what is it, Highway 12 or 14, if I'm not mistaken. It's one of those two. Correct me if I'm wrong in the chat there. But, if you combine those two, it really shows the ability the Ukrainians have to really impact the Crimea and Zaporizhia front. Again, shutting off that road bridge, shutting off the land bridge there, and shutting off the highway would have drastic effects, and is having drastic effects already. But if that were to continue, if that would persist, and then again, if you pair that up with the Ukrainians taking out the Kerch Bridge, like has been threatened for so long and has been attacked many times before, then again, you can see that this may be one of the geographical points in which the Ukrainians could have the biggest impact on, basically shutting off almost entirely the resupply of that portion of the country.
Ukrainian military intelligence special forces have carried out highly coordinated counterattacks across 3 separate axes. South of Zaporizhia, in the Stepanohisk region, the town of Stepanohisk, Ukraine has managed to recapture key ground and push the occupiers into retreat. Operating under the cover of poor weather, Ukrainian assault teams utilize mine-resistant ambush-protected vehicles, or MRAPs, to navigate local dirt roads heavily scattered with the Russian anti-tank and anti-personnel mines and debris. The initial mechanized assault broke through the outer perimeter of the Russian defensive lines, suppressing enemy fire positions with heavy machine gun and automatic grenade launcher fire.
A little better.
Once inside the northern edge of Stepanohisk, Ukrainian special forces transitioned into methodical urban clearing operations, moving systematically from building to building to neutralize entrenched Russian positions.
And again, it's cool to see video coming in from something that we explained the other day and on multiple shows before that. Obviously, the Russians' advancements in and around Stepanohisk, followed by the counterattacks of the Ukrainians and subsequent, pushing of more forces into the area and subsequently moving the Russians back in the area. So now to see the footage coming out from that and obviously confirming and corroborating those reports is a good sign. But like I said, I think there's a bunch of different aspects. If you want to go through this, kind of telling you about the Zaporizhia front, the Mariupol, Putin's phantom gains, bleeding the beast, Russia's weakness. There's a ton of different aspects of this. This is about almost 29 minutes long. So I'll get you guys out of here. We'll start thanking some people. Maybe I'll throw this link in the chat in case you guys want to watch the rest of this on your own time. You guys can do that at your own accord. There we go. Let me throw that in the chat. All right, link in the chat for you guys in case you wanted to see that. What's up, Jenny Faye? How are you? What's up, Yakov? What's up? What's going on, peeps? I appreciate you for sticking with me all night. I really do. Your help, your support, your passion, your aggression is what fuels me. So you guys continue to stay out there, stay active, stay passionate. And we'll be right here bringing you guys the updates, the highlights, the news, the lowlights, if you will. But let's see if we can thank some people on Venmo for their kindness, their contributions to the channel, which is very, very meaningful, very, very impactful. And as we do at the end of every show, we love to say thank you and highlight and give some shout outs to people. So thank you today on Venmo. Geneva. Oh, Geneva, you just continue to be so great. I really appreciate you. Appreciate you, Brian. 2 great shows today. Thank you. No, thank you guys, Geneva and everybody else that supports this show, that comes back, watches twice on Wednesday, all of the other shows that we have. Thank you so much. Thank you so much to Donna D for your kind contribution. Thanks for the news updates. Donna D says, right back at you, Donna D. Right, big thank you right back at you. Very kind of you to contribute to the show. Thank you, Nina C, for your contribution from Namaste on YouTube. Please make sure you are all taking a break from the daily madness to reset and preserve your sanity. I think that is great advice. advice in which we give often here at Blunt Politics to, walk the dog, read a book, watch a movie, smoke a blunt, whatever you got to do to take some time away from the nonsense. Take that time away. We all want you to be, as passionate and as, filled with energy come midterms and obviously general elections as you possibly can. So don't get burnt out. I tend to recognize and appreciate everything that you guys go through. I think a little bit more than any other channel tends to recognize that. So, take care of yourself. Like I said, make sure you are up to speed and kind of at the best possible level that you can be at for these fights. So I appreciate that. Thank you so much to Dame earlier on today for the buck or two. I really appreciate the contributions. Thank you to Kathy very much for your contributions. Thank you to Brian H. Thank you to Nancy again. Well wishes and good vibes being sent out to Nancy once again. Thank you so much to Karen and Roger, Jeff, Allison. Let's see, who am I missing? James, Yakov, Tom and Victoria, MR. Thank you to Nina once again. Everybody, moms, Tom the altar boy again. Shout out to Tom the altar boy. Good vibes, well wishes going out to Tom and his daughter Alyssa. If Alyssa, ever hears this or sees this again, make sure that we're thinking about him and again, keeping everybody in the chat there on our minds as well. Thank you guys so much to everybody on Venmo. Let's start thanking people on the YouTube side of things. First up today was Frankie. What's up, my man? Appreciate you. Buy a popsicle. I appreciate that. The weather has been very consistent with the need for a popsicle lately up here. It's been pretty hot. So thank you, Frank, for your contributions. Much appreciated, my friend. Thank you, Greg. I'll have a bourbon ready, champagne. Yeah, I'm telling you. We're going to have to fight that hangover when that news finally filters through to everybody that, in fact, that heart has beat for the last time. Those lungs have, in fact, taken their last breath. I'll be right there celebrating with you guys. So I appreciate you, Greg. Once again, I'm starting to feel better about an impeachment. So much backbiting. Ours might need to jump on board to save their own asses. Vote, vote, vote. Much appreciated, Greg. I second that. Get out there. Make sure if there's one fucking time in politics that you're going to get involved and decide to vote, for the betterment of not only you, but for society as well, it's fucking right goddamn now. So Greg, I'm with you, my brother. Thank you so much for your contributions. Thank you so much, Wes, as always, for everything that you do for this channel. Eyes on the prize. Midterms are all there is. And again, I second that mightily. I second that heavily. West. So again, we should be doing everything we possibly can to make sure that midterms goes in our favor, whether again that's calling out the criminalities, calling out the bullshit behind the scenes, boosting the appropriate candidates, boosting the appropriate policies, calling out every single thing that Donald Trump is responsible for, all the detriment to our society, anything that we could possibly do to continue pushing towards these midterm elections, which are, in my opinion, the most important definitely of my lifetime. So very much appreciated. Vinny, thank you so much. If these mongrels pull out another January 6th, who are we calling to help us? And I think that's going to be us. Once again, like I said, I don't think that we're furious enough. I don't think that we're active enough. I'm not saying that you guys aren't doing as much as you possibly can, but as a society as a whole, I think we need to get a whole lot more angry. I think we need to get a whole lot more passionate, and I think we need to get a whole lot more active. If I do say so myself. Get out of your seats, get the fuck out of your sheets, and get into the streets, motherfuckers, because that's exactly what today's society and what Donald Trump and his second administration calls for. And again, this blatant corruption isn't going away anytime soon. If we continue to let it happen, if we continue to just lay down and let this government roll and the CEOs and the billionaire class roll on top of us, that's exactly what they're going to fucking continue to do. Roll right the fuck over us. So, Vinny, right there with you, my brother. Thank you so much. DPD, how are you, dear? Thank you so much for your kind contribution. DPD says, I am exhausted from all the bullshit. My son has actively been searching on his own world atlas for other countries our family can relocate to, which is funny and sad at the same time. We must do better. Children are suffering. Absolutely. Sorry, very sorry for that going on and you guys feeling that need there. And again, make sure you take care of yourself there, DPD. Make sure you take a couple days, if necessary, away from all the madness, the bullshit. I know it's easier said than done to tell people to take a trip, but even a walk with the pet, a picnic or something with your son, whatever it may be, take some time for yourself. Make sure that you're doing what's right by yourself and make sure you're keeping yourself healthy. So DPD, as always, thank you so much for your kind contribution. Very much appreciated. And again, sorry that's what everybody and a lot of people are having to deal with, unfortunately, at this moment in time. So, Greg, thank you again. Great tech, but hope that they aren't relying on Elon. Again, the Starlink, I think you're referencing the Starlink as it works with the unjammable drones. And yes, I would much rather not have to utilize Elon Musk in any way, shape, or form, or his Starlink at this point. But if it's going to continue to be shut off for the Russians and it's going to continue to be afforded to the Ukrainians as something that they can utilize, I will be right here, happy to appreciate and happy to highlight and spotlight the ways in which they are able, smart enough, genius enough, ingenious enough to be able to utilize that while it's available. So I get what you're saying, Greg, absolutely, and I'm right there with you. But at this point in time, if it's going to help them, if it's going to benefit them, that's something that I'm willing to kind of, take the risk of and kind of deal with until it comes to a head, or it comes to the point in time where it becomes a problem again. Then we can deal with it then. But if they're willing to utilize it, if they feel trustful enough in utilizing that technology to their benefit, then who the fuck am I to say anything at this point, right? They're in there fighting for their existence, fighting for their survival, fighting for their country. So like I said, I will call it out if the necessary need, or if the need arises for that, then I'll be right here calling it out. Greg, with you. I appreciate you, brother. Thank you so much for that kind contribution as well. Greg, again, big night for Greg. Let's go. You reminded me, Pac-Man is selling debt relief scammers. I don't care if you have CC debt or what mattress you sleep on, so I'll send money here. You reminded me, Pac-Man. Is that David Pac-Man is selling debt relief scammers? And again, I'd say this too. I have no fucking problem calling out other leftists or progressives or liberals or anybody that does this for a living. I'm a chatter. I came from a chat first. I was watching these shows way before I had an established show or a podcast myself, so I know how frustrating it is for these fucking shows to consistently throw you commercial after commercial, ad after ad, selling you a mattress, selling you fucking AG1, selling you find out your heritage, here's a way for you to help your debt, all of this shit that they say change their lives and they utilize on a daily basis. Bull fucking shit. You think it was stupid? You never used that fucking product a day in your goddamn life. You certainly didn't fucking pay for it throughout through your own wallet, through your own pocket. You were sent that last night. They said, here's your fucking discount code to put on the screen. Tell everybody that it changed your life. Here's what you can read, and tell everybody to fucking utilize your QR code or whatever the fuck. So it doesn't matter, left or right. I'm sick of that bullshit. Something that we've time and time again said that we're not going to do here. We're going to try to do this the independent route, and that's what we're consistently doing. So nobody has any sway over what we say, what we talk about, what we can and can't say. None of that shit. So there's so many different aspects in why we're trying to stay independent. And one main reason is to not just totally decapitate the viewing experience by having 47 ads. Whether in the chat or anywhere else for that matter. So I try to do my best at making it kind of clean for you guys, and we do this again the independent route as much as possible. And again, we've done it pretty consistently, and that's the only way we've gotten ahead in this game so far. So Greg, people like you and other people like JD consistently throwing a couple bucks in the chat has helped us get to that position. JD with the Siempre Antifascista. Again, I appreciate you, my brother. Go right in the swear jar. Thank you, Carol. A big thank you to my physical therapist. A big shout out to your physical therapist, Carol. Much appreciated for the $5 contribution. It must be one hell of a physical therapist for you to throw in $5 to my chat. I appreciate that shout out. So again, thank you for everybody contributing. Thank you for everybody kicking in one form or another. Again, whether that's just the free stuff, liking, sharing, subscribing, sharing this out to your social media platform, sharing this out to friends and family in your different chats that you got going on, whatever it may be. Helping kind of continuously get us up there on the old subscriber base is very much appreciated. So I'll see you guys tomorrow for the Thursday show. Sorry to keep you over time tonight, but I think it was another good show. Again, I'm always biased when I say that. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. To the mods, very much appreciated. Pac-Man plays drums, just not very well, but he also doesn't know what APAC is, right? What is that? IPAC? Is that a pack? He doesn't know what the fuck it is at that point. Right? How ridiculous was that bullshit? What a fucking hack. Anyway, before I go and get myself in trouble and start, creating feuds, maybe that's what I have to do. Maybe that's another way to grow. Maybe I should just start feuding with all these fucking hacks, right? Maybe I should just calling out all these pricks. regardless of what side they're on. Maybe that's another way to jump up there. But I digress. No sense starting fights at the end of the show. You know what I mean? All right. I'll see you tomorrow. I love you guys. Thank you to the mods first and foremost. Love you guys. Appreciate you guys. Respect you guys so much. And then thank you to the best chat, best community here on social media. You guys couldn't have been more supportive and couldn't take care of me any better than you do at this point. So thank you guys. Big thank you. And I'll see you guys tomorrow for the Thursday. What's today? Thursday show. Today's Wednesday. So that would in fact mean that Thursday is tomorrow. So yes, I was right. I'll see you for the Thursday show. I'm out of here. Mozart, Jenny Faye, Namaste, Vincent, 5 Cals, Michael. What's going on, my brother? You guys have a wonderful, wonderful night. Thank you, Tiff. Thank you, Janelle. Thank you again to all the mods that I have here. I've been very blessed with the best mods on the internet here, every single one of them. So thank you so much. Thank you, Lawns. Thank you, Orb Vroomer. Appreciate you guys, and I will see you tomorrow. All right, make sure you hit that like button on the way out. Again, I'm Brian. This is Blunt Politics, and we're just that little political podcast that keeps going, motherfuckers. Political podcast that keeps going. All right, so I appreciate you. I'm out of here. Thanks. Peace. All right, which one was it? Was it this one? This button? Thank you, Pops. Appreciate you, big guy. Appreciate the support. Everything that you've done. As always, I love you. Moms, thank you so much. And thank you so much for sending in those pictures. Thank you for your support. Thank you for everything. We love you. We appreciate it. Good night, Janelle. Appreciate you. Thank you, Namaste. Thank you, Miss Kitty. Thank you, Trazi. Much appreciated to you, Frank. Right Said Rob over there on Twitch. Maybe condense for a conflict for chat.
Вітаю, Бостон Брайан. Мій позивний танцор. Я представник 72-ї бригади. Дякую тобі і твоїм підписникам за цей донат, за цю чудову машину, яка буде нас возити усіх на позиції, захищати Україну і наближати перемогу. Разом усі до перемоги. Дякую.
Слава Україні! I don't know about that, but Vincent, you've been a big part of helping me get to the point where we are right now. All of you guys, again, very much appreciated. Thank you for getting us to this point. Hopefully it just continues on like this. So, Vincent, appreciate you, my brother. Thank you, Flipper. Thank you, Jan. Thank you, Vasantha. Guys tomorrow, all right? Another day in the big, fat, sloppy United States.
The big, fat, sloppy